Chapter 1466. As he merged with the great Tao once more, the gray lotus flower above Qin Feng's 3 flowers that represented the Khanate creation great Tao finally grew to the 9th grade. An incomparably harmonious aura seeped out from the 3 flowers. This was already the pinnacle of a level 16 saint god. After the Tao unification, the next step was to privatize the spirit sea. Naturally, as his personal backyard, Qin Feng would definitely not nurture anyone into a postnatal master god. His gaze first landed on the Taibai master god and the Golden Rock master god. While the other experts had just entered the first step of the Tao unification stage to intercept the great Tao, these 2 master gods had already completed the first step and were about to enter the second step to condense the Tao seed. Qin Feng's gaze first landed on the Golden Rock master god. This Golden Rock master god seemed to be a postnatal master god on the postnatal speed great Tao. This time, he wanted to ascend to the Khanate level and condense the Tao seed of the Khanate universe. The Golden Rock master god sensed Qin Feng's gaze. Dressed in golden robes, his gaze was extremely cold as he looked into the distance. It was as though the Qin Feng above time revealed a hint of anger. Golden light shield. He tossed out a small shield that instantly turned into a boundless golden light. It seemed to be made out of heavenly metal and had an eternal golden chi floating around it. Even as he threw out the small shield, he did not stop there. He waved his hands continuously, and it seemed as if endless golden feathers flew out from his body, turning into hundreds and thousands of golden-clothed figures holding golden swords. They turned into a huge killing array to protect his body. Eternal golden feathers of the firmament. In the wild spirit region, many demon gods of the golden-winged great rock race recognized this super-divine technique. This was the super-divine technique of the Golden Pool great rock race. Every golden feather turned into a clone with 1/10 of the original body's strength and formed the eternal golden firmament formation. It was both offensive and defensive, and even a master god would be able to defend against it for a split second or 2. A split second or 2 was enough for many things to happen, and it could even allow the Golden Rock master god to enter the 3rd step. Once he entered the 3rd step, even Qin Feng would not be able to do anything to him. At the sight of this, Qin Feng's eyes flashed coldly as he gripped the war god's sword. He swung his sword. A dazzling sword light pierced through the skies as the golden light shield and the eternal golden firmament formation. The Golden Rock master god's true body was split into 2, and blood light filled the skies. Boom! The Tao integration stage phenomenon came to an abrupt end, and the elegy of the great Tao sounded. The entire place fell abnormally silent. Many of the over-gods in the outer realm felt chills run down their spines when they saw this. This had completely overturned everything they knew. In the eyes of many of the master gods of the god systems, the means that the Golden Rock master god had prepared would take an instant or 2 to break through even if they were to go all out. In the outer realms, both the creation master god and the Golden Rock master god, whose hopes had been dashed, wore extremely gloomy expressions. After killing the clone of the Golden Rock master god, Qin Feng's gaze fell upon the Taibai master god of the dragon race. Similarly, a mighty streak of sword light blasted the primordial sovereign's clone to death. After killing the 2 sovereign clones, Qin Feng turned his gaze towards the remaining master-level Grand Emperors. His gaze first locked onto Emperor Shi's quaking Thunder Great Emperor, who had a conflict with him. The Thunderquake Emperor's goal was the post-celestial Thunder Great Tao. Lightning was the core of Yin and Yang, the backbone of transformation. Could sublimate into the Khanate destruction of the 5 Grand Taos of Terminus, and it could also sublimate into the Grand Tao of Yin and Yang of the Khanate creation. The quaking Thunder Great Emperor's foundation was far inferior to the 2 overgods. Right now, he had just taken the first step into the unifying path, intercepting the Great Tao. Under the sword light, he was practically defenseless. He had used all his treasures and divine arts, but he was still killed. Watching the quaking Thunder Great Emperor die right before their eyes, many of the God System's experts felt chills run down their spines. Their expressions were filled with fear and helplessness. They could not help but feel sympathy for the death of a sovereign. However, the primeval Great Emperor had already attained the body of an innate Master God and possessed the power of home ground. He was basically limitless, unless the real body of a Master God from the outer realm descended. However, if the Master Gods from the outer realm descended to the other upper realms of the 33 heavens, they would need time to familiarize themselves with the rules of the Great Tao. Within a short period of time, they would probably not be able to unleash even 1% of their power. If there were no Master Gods from the great 1,000 worlds in the other world, they could give it a try. Now, not only had an innate Master God been born in the Spirit Sea Void Great Cosmos, but it also seemed like this innate Master God was far superior to ordinary Master Gods. Even if a rank 17 Master God of Chaos were to enter rashly, he would most likely not be able to escape being suppressed. With the cultivation they had today, how could the various Master Gods do something that they had no chance of winning? After killing the quaking Thunder Great Emperor, Qin Feng's gaze landed on Dao Bing Gong Ao, who was among the 7. For a very long time, this former number 1 true disciple of Xingqian school, eldest senior brother Gong Ao, had been a dark cloud above his head that would not disperse. Even though he had achieved success in his cultivation, this person was still a thorn in his side, like a fishbone stuck in his throat. He could not sleep at night, afraid that one day, this ticking time bomb would explode. A cold smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Today, he could finally get rid of this thorn in his side. Oh no! Dao Bing Gong Ao immediately sensed Qin Feng's murderous intent. He was trying his best to intercept the postnatal great Tao of Earth. When he sensed the terrifying murderous intent, a trace of resentment and indignation flashed across his eyes. Even the Golden Rock Master God and the Tai-Bai Master God could not block the sword light. He knew that he would most likely not be able to escape this time. At this moment, a deep sense of regret grew in his heart. He should not have left Qin Feng alive. He should not have left Qin Feng as a whetstone for Yi Ding. He should not have let Qin Feng hinder Yi Ding's growth. Not only was Qin Feng not a stepping stone for Yi Ding, but Yi Ding had become his stepping stone instead. Step by step, Yi Ding helped Qin Feng. If he had made up his mind to kill Qin Feng back then, Qin Feng would not have been able to resist at all. Amidst his regret, the sword light swept across and instantly obliterated Dao Bing Gong Ao's divine body, Yuan spirit, and even divine nation. Even the imprints in the river of time and space were reduced to ashes by this sword. The moment Gong Ao was killed, on Mount Feiyun in the Origin Star, the innate northern underworld deity King Yi Ding let out a roar that was both happy and sorrowful. A huge surge of fate energy pierced through the air and landed on his head. The dense divine light condensed and turned into a deity Emperor Law, Boundary Emperor Law. He broke through in an instant. In the past, he was the son of great fortune of Xingqian school, but half of it was borrowed by Gong Ao. Although he had improved by leaps and bounds over the years, he was still far from the top sons of great fortune. This time, with Gong Ao's death, part of the borrowed fate energy carried Gong Ao's remaining fate energy and was absorbed by him. He had broken free of his shackles and soared into the sky like a dragon. Breaking through to the deity emperor, boundary emperor, realm was a matter of course. Damn it! At the same time that Dao Bing Gong Ao was killed, the heavenly Miao Miao demon god materialized from a pearl in an ancient ruin. His face was pale. Lu and I lost to you, and the man I chose will also lose to a pawn you casually chose. I can't accept this. The heavenly Miao Miao demon god roared as he muttered to himself, his face contorted. After killing Gong Ao, Qin Feng went on to kill the other 4 heavenly kings of calamity, Taoist heavenly spirit, Taoist thousand evil, and the Blood Spirit Emperor. He completely eliminated the threats in the back garden. Only Dao Yi, the great Emperor of the Six Paths, was left. Chapter 1467. Qin Feng looked at Wang Daoyi, who was in the middle of the Dao unification phenomenon. At this moment, Wang Daoyi was wearing a black robe. His face was as white as jade and he looked handsome. His hands were under his long sleeves, and his eyes were crystal clear. It was as if he didn't see Qin Feng's gaze at all. There was vicissitude, decisiveness, and indomitable will in his eyes. Countless Dao unification phenomena appeared around him. Yellow Spring roared. 9 underworlds resonance. Hell's judgment. Vaguely, among those phenomena, the 18 levels of hell and the billions of nether ghost kingdoms, there were 6 paths of heaven and earth rotating, forming 6 huge reincarnation passages. The 6 paths were the heavenly path, the Azura path, the human path, the animal path, the hungry ghost path, and the hell path. Within the 6 paths there was a vague supreme power. The many lights seemed to be alive, as if they contained countless lives, time, space, and the 5 skandhas. Endless power evolved in the lights. This phenomenon was very shocking. At this moment, many God System elites were looking at 6 Paths Emperor. They didn't care what he was thinking. Qin Feng's eyes flickered slightly. After a while, he didn't do anything else, which disappointed many God System experts. Actually, they hoped even more that Qin Feng would be able to ruthlessly kill Wang Daoyi. Such a dictatorship would surely cause the hearts of all living beings to turn cold. At that time, he might be able to utilize the resentment of all living beings to draw the descent of the gods in the outer realm. Qin Feng more or less knew what the God System experts were thinking. He sneered. He, Qin Feng, wasn't so narrow-minded. Moreover, so what if Wang Daoyi became a future god? Could he still arm wrestle with him? His gaze fell on many godly kings and godly emperors who were taking the opportunity to pass the divine tribulation and seize the divine position. This made some godly kings and godly emperors tremble in fear. In the shock, some were distracted and died under the divine tribulation. However, Qin Feng only glanced at them. He didn't plan to do anything else. From today onwards, the Linghai continent would be his private backyard. Naturally, these godly kings and godly emperors would be his people. They were all good cannon fodder and strong men. With Qin Feng watching over him and no one else causing trouble, 6 Paths Emperor was able to cultivate without worry. As the phenomenon intensified, more and more Houtian Dao integration phenomena appeared in the sky. Vaguely, the great Dao began to manifest, as if it was about to give birth to something mysterious. But all of a sudden, this change suddenly froze. Immediately afterward, the numerous Dao integration stage avatars suddenly collapsed under the gazes of all the powerful beings present. Reincarnation manifested, and the resonance of the myriad Daos came to an abrupt end. Bang! In the next second, there seemed to be a sudden clap of thunder in the center. 6 Paths the great Emperor's divine apertures broke open and an immortal divine rainbow burst out of his body and exploded, destroying the endless void. I failed. When the numerous divine branches powerhouses saw this scene, they shook their heads and wore gloomy expressions. He actually failed? Looking at the great Emperor of the 6 Paths, Dao Yi's body shattered and his true spirit destroyed, Qin Feng's eyes flashed with a hint of shock. In Qin Feng's impression, Wang Daoyi, the ancestor of the underworld, should have attained the postnatal samsara great Dao in the end. Could it be that my influence caused this change? Qin Feng was a little lost for a moment. On the other side, the many powerful beings of the primordial Xingqian school were also speechless, especially Wang Daoyi's 14 disciples. They had already sunk into despair. 10 lifetimes of reincarnation, 10 lifetimes of cultivation, 10 lifetimes of planning, and still, they could not escape the fate of death. This kind of blow made them despair. What a pity! Even though he had already broken through, Qin Feng still felt sad. To be honest, his foundation was inferior to that of the great Emperor of the Six Paths, Tao Yi. If not for the Creator Space's ability to cut through time and space bit by bit, which allowed him to broaden his horizons and comprehend a part of the myriad world's divine rules, he might have already died when he tried to break through to the Tao integration stage. He sighed slightly and cut off the distracting thoughts in his heart. From today onwards, all sects and forces are to make a pilgrimage to the primordial Xingqian school within half a year. Present the name list of the sects and offer their providence as tribute. If you don't arrive on time, all of you will be obliterated. An incomparably domineering voice resounded through the trillions of voids and tens of thousands of kilometers, falling into the ears of many sects and powerhouses. The expressions of many sects and families changed drastically. As soon as he finished speaking, Qin Feng glanced at the Golden Crow clan's Kongsang Mountain, which was close by. A hint of indifference flashed across his eyes. In his eyes, the entire Spirit Sea continent was his backyard now. There was no need to directly destroy the Golden Crow clan on the Kongsang Mountain. In terms of appearance, the Golden Crow clan was comparable to the majesty of the Dragon clan and the grace of the Phoenix clan. It was best to use them as a mount. In the next moment, his figure flashed and appeared in the primordial Xingqian school. Inside the huge mountain gate of the Earth-Swamp Divine region, as Qin Feng released his aura and revealed his true body, it was as if the great Tao had descended. Ethereal music was heard, flowers fell from the sky, golden lotuses bloomed on the ground, and purple clouds appeared from the horizon. Welcome, primordial Lord God. As soon as he landed, the mighty voices of many primordial Xingqian school disciples came from below. Many of the kings were unable to contain their excitement. A Lord God. The primordial Xingqian school had finally given birth to a Lord God that belonged to them one day. At this moment, the many elders and disciples who were still in the sect felt extremely fortunate. In fact, when the Emperor Shi God system, the Creation God system, the Dragon God system, and other god systems had all made their offers, many of the elders had wavered. However, at this moment they felt extremely fortunate. If they had joined the other god systems, they would be in trouble now. As the primordial Lord God became a Lord God, it was only right to settle accounts. Of course, those disciples who betrayed their sects might not even be able to become a true god. It would be difficult for them to even keep their lives. On the contrary, the rise of the primordial Xingqian school was inevitable. If the primordial Lord God could become the only Lord God of the Spirit Sea continent, the primordial Xingqian school would probably become a colossus that surpassed the 10 great divine sections. As the disciples and elders of the primordial Xingqian school, their status would definitely rise. Rise, all of you! Qin Feng waved his hand and landed on the jade step. Under the respectful gazes of the many disciples and elders, he entered the main hall of the primordial Xingqian school and walked up to the throne in the center. Qin Feng glanced at the many experts in the main hall and casually instructed the elders to get ready to welcome the various sects' envoys. Then, he dismissed the crowd. The disciples and elders all had excited looks on their faces. It was as if they had been injected with chicken blood. Their inflated confidence and pride almost made the chests of these primordial Xingqian school experts explode. They left excitedly and gave their all, preparing to perform well in front of the primordial Lord God. Qin Feng did not pay attention to these arrogant disciples. He had more important things to do. Becoming the first Lord God of the Spirit Sea realm was not enough to make the Spirit Sea realm his backyard. He still had to do one more thing, which was to completely eliminate the chances of those god systems outside the realm. Recommended friend, a new book by a great god, Primordial Dragon Emperor Technique. Chapter 1468. Qin Feng knew very well that as long as there was a glimmer of hope, the gods would not give up. The benefits of a Treastrimsa heaven were too great. Although the extraterritorial lords could not do anything for now, they would definitely take action again soon. A level 16 innate holy god could not intimidate the god systems. He had to cut off the extraterritorial lord's thoughts first. The method was very simple. Refine the origin. As long as he refined the origin of the spirit sea void great cosmos, he would be able to enjoy a Trayastrimsa heaven like the great emperor of the East and Emperor Shi of the Archaic era. However, refining an ordinary great kiliacosm was no small matter. It would take at least thousands of years, not to mention an upper Trayastrimsa heaven that was above the greater thousand world. Without hundreds of thousands of years or even millions of years of grinding, it would be impossible. However, even 10,000 years was too long for Qin Feng, let alone a million years. The lords would definitely not give him 10,000 years. However, Qin Feng had already planned for this. He was now the ancient emperor of this era in the spirit sea void great cosmos. Now that he had the title, he could use this as an opportunity to nibble away at the origin of the spirit sea realm step by step. Or he could use the old method of the archaic void great cosmos to preach Tao and use the life force of the masses as a bridge to nibble away at the origin of the spirit sea void great cosmos faster. He did not need to control too much of the origin. As long as he could control a little of the origin of the spirit sea void great cosmos, he could use this as an opportunity to set up a heavenly lock and cut off the extraterritorial lord's thoughts. After making up his mind, he began to act. The thoughts of his primordial spirit fluctuated. Using the position of the Son of Heaven as an opportunity to break through, Qin Feng felt that his primordial spirit had instantly entered a colorful world. It was an ocean surging with colorful light. The origin sea. Qin Feng's primordial spirit turned into a man in white and looked at the origin sea. The origin of the spirit sea void great cosmos was here. It was like a huge and boundless colorful ocean. At the same time, he felt a faint repulsion. It was the instinct of the spirit sea void great cosmos. However, the repulsion disappeared as soon as the purple gas flashed on his body. That was the purple chi of the Son of Heaven that represented the position of the ancient Son of Heaven. The ancient Son of Heaven was a special deity position born from the origin. If not for that, he wouldn't have been able to enter the land of origin. With a single thought, a great Tao was born from the Creator space. He pierced through time and space, broke through the chaos barrier outside the origin sea, and appeared directly in the origin sea. He slowly transformed into a giant purple dragon. The purple dragon looked like a bridge between the origin sea and the creator space, slowly refining the spirit sea origin energy in the origin sea. The purple dragon was the manifestation of Qin Feng's ancient Son of Heaven position in the origin sea. It refined the seven-colored origins in the origin sea, increasing its share of the origin sea bit by bit, advancing towards the position of Celestial Emperor. At the same time, Qin Feng's creator space used the Son of Heaven position as a bridge and a stepping stone to silently influence and monitor the entire origin sea. In the origin sea, the many reincarnated avatars of the sacred gods were revealed. At the same time, the Dream Kingdom and the billions of underworld kingdoms left behind by the great Emperor of the Six Paths, Tao Yi, were gradually taken over by the Creator Space, as the two subsidiary organizations of the Creator Space that monitored the world. Under Qin Feng's control, such earth-shattering changes occurred silently like the spring wind and rain. Many sects and families didn't notice the changes at all. Only the sacred god avatars with extremely sensitive spiritual senses vaguely realized that there was an unknown change in the world. It was as if their every move was being monitored by the world at all times. However, this kind of monitoring was still somewhat crude. Even so, the numerous sacred gods still wore grim expressions. They knew very well what this meant. This meant that the primeval master god's control of the spirit sea void great cosmos was increasing step by step. As long as the various forces in the spirit sea void great cosmos were integrated and a true God system was formed, this place would become an iron fortress and they wouldn't be able to interfere anymore. Qin Feng indeed had the intention to establish a God system. If he wanted to truly manage the spirit sea void great cosmos as his own private backyard, he naturally had to use some trivial method. Qin Feng didn't want to do these things himself as they were too trivial. Establishing a complete God system was the best method. Qin Feng's God system had already taken shape. In the various great cosmos, many gods used the creator space as a hub to communicate with each other. Compared to the many god systems, his wings weren't abundant, but he wasn't alone either. Now, he had several god ranges under him. Among the more complete ones, there was the underworld god range in the immemorial divine tree realm, followed by the magic god range in the Faerun crystal wall system. There was also the star god range in the galaxy. It was a galaxy of talent. In addition, there were several god ranges that were developing. For example, in the immemorial void great cosmos, with his reputation as the creation Tao ancestor, it was more than enough to establish a large god range. There was also the untainted universe. As the Buddha of the Buddhist sect, this identity could also attract a large number of strong forces. Originally, as the spirit sea realm hadn't advanced yet, he didn't dare to go all out and use all his methods. Now, he didn't hold back. These god ranges could all emerge from the darkness. However, Qin Feng didn't intend to do so for the time being. The spirit sea void great cosmos actually had a huge potential. He could establish a huge sacred meridian there. Just as well. This way, he could kill several birds with one stone and slowly squeeze out the potential of the spirit sea void great cosmos. He worked so hard to plan to turn the spirit sea void great cosmos into his private backyard. What was his purpose? Wasn't it to cultivate his wings? The creator space slowly refined the origin source of the spirit sea void great cosmos and increased the proportion of the origin source of the ancient emperor. Half a month later, Qin Feng slowly opened his eyes. Whether it was establishing a god system or refining the origin source, he could do it step by step. However, there was one thing that was imminent. Choose the path of the 17th level. At this moment, he had reached the pinnacle of the 16th level of the innate creation saint god. If he wanted to break through, he had to choose an opposite innate great Tao, derive a new cultivation technique, and comprehend it. This innate great Tao had to fulfill a condition, which was to be the opposite of the previous Tao. It didn't have to be a counter, but it had to be the opposite. For example, the creation Tao seed and the destruction Tao seed, nirvana Tao seed, chaos Tao seed, and so on were all possible. As the innate creation saint god, Qin Feng seemed to have a lot of options. In reality, there weren't many. However, as for the choice of the opposite Tao seed, Qin Feng's gaze was still fixed on the 5 innate Tao seeds. Chapter 1469. The end of the Khanate included 5 Khanate Tao seeds, which were massacre, destruction, freeze, and nirvana. Qin Feng had an innate advantage in cultivating nirvana. Buddhism emphasized nirvana and had the nirvana true inheritance. With that as the foundation, a slight deduction could save a large amount of time. Generally speaking, it would take a long time to make something out of nothing and rededuce a true inheritance technique. It could take tens of thousands of years or even millions of years. With the true inheritance, a lot of time could be saved. However, Qin Feng was still a little hesitant. Actually, he could still choose the Khanate universe great Tao in the Khanate universe. Choosing the opposite Tao seed didn't mean that it had to be opposite, but opposite. What was opposite? The 2 great Taos were clearly separated. Moreover, he had a huge advantage in choosing the Khanate universe great Tao. That was the existence of the Khanate universe great Tao in the only 2 Khanate great Taos in the spirit sea void great universe. Moreover, Qin Feng didn't only have that advantage. He also had an connate spiritual item that corresponded to the connate universe Great Tao. It was the universe book in the space-time dual image scripture. In the past, Qin Feng had always thought that the space-time dual image scripture was a single connate spiritual treasure. However, he was wrong. The space-time dual image scripture was two separate connate spiritual treasures. These two innate spirit treasures should have originated from some strange great void universe, created by heaven and earth, corresponding to the innate universe and time Tao. However, they were already incomplete now. Generally speaking, connate spiritual treasures were extremely precious as they were born from the connate great Tao. In the spirit sea void great universe, there should only be two connate spiritual treasures in the newly promoted upper world of the 33 heavens. They corresponded to the connate creation Great Tao and the connate universe Great Tao respectively. Now that Qin Feng had already occupied the connate creation Tao seed, the corresponding connate spiritual treasure wouldn't be born. At most, there would only be a lower-level connate spiritual treasure. In the immemorial void great universe, there were 49 connate great Tao. Therefore, there should be 49 connate spiritual treasures. However, since the universe was created, there were many connate spiritual treasures that were disrupted and evolved. Moreover, there were 8 connate Tao ancestors. There were 41 spiritual treasures at most. However, in Qin Feng's opinion, there were very few primordial spiritual treasures in the primordial void universe. Most of them were incomplete or had their corresponding primordial Tao seeds occupied. The Universe Book and Universe Book in the space-time duality scripture were connate magic treasures that had been interrupted. Ever since his rebirth, Qin Feng had been trying to find the Book of Ian. In fact, he was wrong. Actually, the Book of Ian had always been by his side. It should be said that she was once by his side. He once thought that he was the reincarnation of the Thunder God from the last days, but the truth was that this wasn't the case. Before the Book of Ian shattered, it used its unparalleled strength to bring him back through the river of time, past and future, experiencing one of the memory fragments. He had never been reborn. The only reason he had this illusion was because he had obtained a fragment of time from the future. The future was unpredictable and had countless possibilities. What he had obtained was only one of the possibilities, a fragment above the long river of time. However, to a certain extent, he could be considered to have been reborn. The future Thunder God was also reincarnated from his original spirit imprint. Back then, the Qin family had guessed correctly. His father did have a huge adventure, and that adventure was the space-time duality scripture. He knew that he was going to die, so he secretly hid the space-time duality scripture in the body of the young Qin Feng. In the past, Qin Feng thought that he had been reborn because the Book of Ian had shattered and brought him back to the future. The fragments of time had merged. His soul was too weak to accommodate the reincarnated original spirit imprint of the future. The future original spirit imprint took the opportunity to occupy the dominant position, so he had such an illusion. However, although the present original spirit imprint and the future original spirit imprint came from the same source, they were indeed two different people. Back then, the Thunder God thought that he had been reborn. To a certain extent, he wasn't too wrong. Qin Feng had only understood the twists and turns of this after reaching the Tao integration realm. His primordial spirit had reached the Tao integration realm and traced the flow of time. Afterwards, when the Book of Ian shattered, the Book of Universe was also on the verge of shattering. Fortunately, he had opened the path of cultivation at that time and was able to stabilize the Book of Universe that was on the verge of shattering. He gradually nurtured it and brought it back to life. As for the ancient space-time ruler in his memories who wielded the space-time duality scripture, in reality, it was just the spirituality of the universe and Ian books that had blinded Qin Feng's soul, causing him to have a misconception. However, according to Qin Feng's exploration methods, he could reverse time and trace the source. The books of Universe and Aeon came from the origin divine world. They did have a master, but that master had accidentally obtained the books of Universe and Aeon. Before he could comprehend them, he was targeted by the origin divine world's master god. He could only flee to the spirit sea realm like a stray dog. Relying on the spirit sea realm's foundation, he blocked the origin divine world's master god's cross-realm attack. However, even though he managed to block the master god's cross-realm pursuit, the two books Universe and Aeon were also heavily damaged. Moreover, because he was an outsider, that powerful expert was quickly discovered by the ancient son of heaven of the spirit sea realm and was heavily injured once again. He died not long after. In short, the Book of Universe was gradually recovering. Moreover, as the spirit sea void universe advanced, it was very likely to evolve into a Khanate spirit treasure and directly nurture the Khanate universe Tao seed. The preciousness of a Khanate spirit treasure was far beyond the imagination of ordinary people. A Khanate spirit treasure nurtured a Khanate Tao embryo, which was the Khanate Tao seed. Any perfected emperor-level expert who obtained a Khanate spirit treasure could directly skip the first two steps of the Tao integration realm and directly enter the third step of the Tao integration realm. This was equivalent to avoiding any opponent's attack in advance. As long as the Tao integration realm succeeded, he could use it to break through. Even if he wasn't a perfected emperor-level expert, he could use the Khanate spirit treasure to derive a Tao true inheritance that belonged to him. The benefits of this were needless to say. With a corresponding Khanate spirit treasure, the probability of Tao validation would increase by at least 10%. 10% was not to be underestimated. For emperor-level experts, an increase in the probability of Tao validation was enough to make them rejoice. A 10% chance was simply inconceivable. In a certain greater thousand world or epoch, emperor-level experts were the overlords of an area. They were high and mighty, looking down on the other kings. However, in the many upper worlds of the 33 heavens, although there were very few perfected emperor-level experts, their total number was not small. However, since ancient times, countless extremely talented geniuses had been at the perfected emperor level, but were unable to step into the rank 16 over God realm until their death. Any perfected emperor-level expert, if there was a 10% chance of Tao validation, would definitely not be stingy with trying. When Qin Feng had first reached the Tao integration realm, his probability was barely 10%. Chapter 1470. In the end, Qin Feng decided to choose the Khanate Universe Great Tao as the second Great Tao. After all, he was already very good at controlling spacetime before he upgraded the water element to the creation realm. Together with the Universe Book, he would be like a tiger with wings. Of course, the most important reason for this decision was the Khanate Universe Great Tao in the Spirit Sea Void Great Universe. In fact, Qin Feng knew very well that there were not many choices for Tao ancestors in both the primitive Void Great Universe and the Archean Void Great Universe. There was no need to mention the primeval Void Great Cosmos. Most of the 4-9 Khanate Great Taos had owners or had been targeted by Khanate Tao ancestors. Besides, it was also very dangerous to enter the primitive Void Great Universe. Before Qin Feng left the Great Void Cosmos, not only did he offend many Taoist ancestors of the Celestial Sect of Wonders, but some Buddhist ancestors of the Buddhist sect were also displeased with him. It was better in the Archean Void Great Universe, but there were many Archean gods there. Many of them had their eyes on the Khanate Universe Great Tao, especially the Spacetime God, who might have already reached Tao unification. After choosing Qin Feng, he decided to focus on the complicated Universe Book. What he needed to do next was to restore the Universe Book completely. It would be best if it could evolve again in the Spirit Sea Void Great Universe and nurture the Khanate Universe Tao seed to become an Khanate spiritual treasure. At the very least, he had to take this opportunity to comprehend his own connate universe great Tao true inheritance. After an unknown period of time, when the creator space had already invaded 5% of the origin sea, Qin Feng was disturbed from his seclusion. In the central throne of the primordial chaos Xingqian school, Qin Feng opened his eyes slightly. Your Majesty! At this moment, a high-level connate god was already waiting in the main hall. It was the wood elemental connate god, Elder Azure Tharch. What's the matter? Qin Feng glanced at the elder of the Supreme Azure Emperor indifferently. However, with just a glance, Elder Azure Tharch, who was about to reach the immortal king realm, felt cold all over and was pressed to the ground. The Azure Tharch elder hurriedly said as he touched the cold water on his forehead. Your Majesty, the messenger of the Dragon Divine System wishes to see you? Dragon God System? Qin Feng's expression changed. What was the Dragon God System doing here? Could it be that they had sent someone to befriend him? But that's not possible. One must know that he had just slain the clone of a dragon sovereign. Let them in. Qin Feng thought as he waved his hand. Emperor Qing immediately turned around and led the four of them into the main hall of primordial Xingqian school. Clearly, those four people were the emissaries of the Dragon God System. All four of them were members of the Dragon Clan. They were either handsome men or beautiful women, and all of them had lofty dragon horns on their foreheads. Qin Feng had a strange look on his face. He seemed to know the four experts from the Dragon Tribe. Azure Sea Dragon King Aoshio, Sunflower Water Dragon King Aoli, East Sea Dragon Crown Prince Aoqing, and South Bright Dragon King Aoher greet your Majesty the Ancestral Dragon. The four of them had respectful expressions. Most cultivators would be addressed as Your Majesty, after they became lords. For example, Qin Feng's title was Primeval Emperor, and most monarch-level experts would address him as Primeval Emperor. But the four of them addressed Qin Feng as Ancestral Dragon Majesty. This was thought-provoking, especially since the Dragon God System did not send any emissaries but sent these four. Among the four of them, there were a few experts from the Dragon Tribe who were acquainted with Qin Feng. Azure Sea Dragon King Aoshio was one of the three boundary emperors under Qin Feng's command in primordial Xingqian school, Azure Sea Dragon King. Sunflower Water Dragon King Aoli was also an innate dragon deity king. Years ago, in Xingqian school, when Chaoyang Cave Heaven's master, Light War God Wan Gi, was attempting to become a god, he had asked Unfettered Star Lord to ask Qin Feng to set up a formation to stop the experts from all heavens. Sunflower Water Dragon King Aoli was one of them. In fact, back then, he even wanted Qin Feng to help him out so that he could reach the Tao in the future. Dragon Crown Prince Aoqing was the East Sea's ancestral Dragon Crown Prince. Back then, he had met him in the Dragon Gate. This Dragon Crown Prince was extremely talented, and had broken through to become one of the few dragon deity emperors in the East Sea Dragon Tribe. As for Aoher, Qin Feng smiled when he saw the shy red-clothed girl, whose eyes were darting around as she tried her best to hold back her joy and excitement. Aoher was the little female dragon. Ever since they parted ways at the Dragon Gate, he had been looking for this little female dragon, but he could not find her. He did not expect her to join the South Sea Dragon Tribe. She seemed to be of high status. After the four of them entered, they saw Grand Azure Tharch instructing a group of disciples to carry in many gift boxes. A few days ago, the Dragon Tribe was deceived and did not know that the primordial emperor was the dragon ancestor. Therefore, the three dragon ancestors specially ordered us to bring some gift. I hope 9 Underworld Dragon Ancestor will not forgive us. Azure Sea Dragon King bowed again as he spoke. Qin Feng glanced at the many gift boxes. The Dragon Tribe was famous for their many treasures. There were many spiritual items, spiritual elixirs, and spiritual roots in the gift boxes outside. Aoshio's humble gift was not light, but it was not light. However, the more it was like this, the stranger Qin Feng felt in his heart. The dragon race was a renowned and formidable race in the universe, and it would absolutely not lower its head to a 16th rank innate saint god just because it lost 2 battles. One who was unaccountably solicitous was hiding evil intentions. Qin Feng waved his hand and said calmly, "All right, let's not talk about the formalities. Just tell me the purpose of your master god's visit." The Dragon King of the Azure Sea exchanged a look with Ao Qing, the crown prince of the Dragon Clan. He took a step forward and said respectfully, "Your Majesty Dragon Ancestor, you've misunderstood. The Dragon Clan has always respected Lord Dragon Ancestor. This time, it's the same for the wills of the 3 core gods of the Dragon God System. This time, we are here on behalf of the Dragon Divine System of the Northern Chaos Sea to formally invite the 9 underworlds Dragon Ancestor to become the 4th Master God of the Dragon Tribe. Not only the Dragon King of the Azure Sea Ao Xiao, but the Dragon Prince Ao Qing, the Sunflower Dragon King Aoli, and the little female dragon Ao who also looked solemn and sacred. Northern Chaos Sea Dragon Divine System? Qin Feng looked at Ao Xiao, the Dragon King of the Sea. Azure Sea Dragon King Ao Xiao seemed to be prepared for the primeval Lord God's confusion. She smiled and said, "That's right. Northern Chaos Sea Dragon Divine System." There was a hint of pride in her eyes. The Dragon Tribe is one of the top divine systems. However, the Dragon Tribe divine systems are relatively loose. In addition to the Dragon Tribe divine systems in the Chaotic Sea of the North, there are several other Dragon Tribe divine systems. They are composed of the master gods of the Dragon Tribe from the upper world of the 33 heavens. She paused as embarrassment flashed across her face. Although the Dragon Tribe was powerful, there were too many types of dragons. For example, there were the Penishade Dragon Tribe, the Sky Dragon Tribe, and the Metal Dragon Tribe. These dragon tribes were extremely powerful. Actually, the Spirit Sea Dragon race wasn't considered strong among the dragon race's pantheons. Chapter 1471. In the Outer Realm, the dragon race could be divided into 2 camps: the Eastern Dragon race and the Western Dragon race. The Spirit Sea Dragon race was one of the Eastern Dragon race divine systems. However, compared to the Western Dragon race divine systems, which had been getting stronger over the years, the Eastern Dragon race divine systems seemed to be declining. The Spirit Sea Dragon race divine systems had 3 lords: Taibai Dragon Lord, Taishen Dragon Lord, and Dongtsang Dragon Lord. They were all postnatal holy gods and postnatal dragon lords. Qin Feng wasn't very clear about this. He had just become a level 16 holy god and had been working hard to reach level 17. He wasn't very clear about the situation in the Chaos Sea around the Spirit Sea. The holy god was actually the dividing line between the greater world experts and those above. Only by stepping into it could one reach the pinnacle of the greater world. The emperor was the king and ruled over the greater world. The holy god was the emperor and looked down on the other kings. However, to enter the outer realm, to stand on the stage of the endless void's primal chaos and gaze upon the boundless primal chaos sea, only rank 16 sacred gods could do so. The atmosphere in the hall was a little tense. Qin Feng lowered his eyebrows. It wasn't impossible to join the dragon race divine systems. As long as there were benefits, he might consider it. However, the 3 holy gods were so enthusiastic. They probably had other requests. Perhaps they were eyeing the Spirit Sea Void Great Cosmos. What are the conditions of the 3 saint gods? Qin Feng looked at the Dragon King of the Azure Sea. I don't think the dragon race only wants benefits? Ao Xiao raised her head and smiled. His Majesty the Ancestral Dragon must be prejudiced against the dragon race divine systems. The 3 holy gods don't have any other intentions. They just want the dragon ancestor to join the Spirit Sea Dragon race divine systems. You have absolute freedom, and the 3 holy gods can make the decision to put the entire Spirit Sea Dragon race under your command. On the central throne, Qin Feng raised his eyebrows. This condition was unexpectedly good. However, Ao Xiao changed the topic. However, the three holy gods hope that if the dragon race in the north is in trouble, you can lend us a hand. Is that all? Qin Feng raised his head. That's right. The Dragon King of the Sea nodded. Seeing this, a smile appeared on Qin Feng's face. If that's the case, please report to the three sacred gods that I agree. Hearing that, the Dragon King of the Azure Sea and the Dragon Crown Prince of the East Sea looked at each other. Excitement flashed through their eyes. All right, Supreme Elder Crimson Emperor, Pure Yang Godly King, Dark North Godly King, it's rare for the four of you to visit my primordial Xingqian school. Please entertain them on behalf of my primordial Xingqian school. Qin Feng waved his hand, and a few God Kings immediately walked out. Under the company of the God Kings, the four Dragon Clan experts immediately left the hall. Ao Huer stared at the white-robed sovereign on the central throne. Even though she was overjoyed, she still forcefully suppressed her joy and retreated with the God Kings. Your Majesty, are you really going to join the Dragon God system? In the main hall, the Supreme Azure Thearcha's elder stepped forward. The remaining Grand Elders were also looking at the primeval Master God in the hall. What are your thoughts? Qin Feng lifted his head. The Supreme Azure Thearcha's elder was not afraid. After following this sovereign for a long time, he had a rough idea of this sovereign's temper. As long as one did not deliberately contradict him or have ulterior motives, the primeval Master God would not be bothered by some insignificant matters. Your Majesty, although I don't know how the extraterritorial god systems are like, I can imagine that the extraterritorial dragon god system is probably not that outstanding. If you want to join a god system, you can definitely maximize your benefits and choose a more powerful god system. Why are you in such a hurry? After saying that, the Supreme Azure Thearcha's elder glanced at the primeval Master God nervously. Qin Feng was not angry. Instead, he looked at the Supreme Azure Thearcha's elder with admiration. Qin Feng looked around at everyone with a calm expression. Don't worry, the Linghai continent will definitely not join any god system. Believe me, we'll have our own god system in the near future. Hearing that, many of the Grand Elders were shocked. Did that mean that the primordial Chaos Xingqian school was going to establish a new god system? The eyes of the group of Grand Elders brightened, and their hearts pounded. This was a huge opportunity. Without a doubt, with the Linghai Void Great Cosmos as its foundation, as the only overlord, the primeval Master God's god system would definitely be a colossus above the various sections. It might even be the only chance for all living beings to transcend. Just thinking about the huge benefits it contained, many old foxes could not help but feel excited. In a huge void great cosmos in the extraterritorial region, it seemed to be where the myriad demon ancestral court was. Countless ancient demon clans and powerful mutated beasts lived there. This was the myriad demon great cosmos, a Treastrimsa heaven that belonged to the myriad demon ancestral court. The light of transcendence emitted by this world was even above the Linghai Void Great Cosmos. This was a Treastrimsa heaven that was even more powerful than the Linghai Void Great Cosmos. In this upper realm, there was a lot of Saint God aura. The Linghai Realm Dragon Clan was one of the overlords here. Other than the Linghai Realm Dragon Clan, the Golden Crow Clan, the Phoenix Clan, and the Golden-Winged Great Pung Clan, there were many other powerful demon clans that lived on this continent. Of course, there were occasional conflicts between these clans, but under the mediation of some powerful monster master gods, most of them were able to live in peace. At the same time, in the western boundless ocean, in the deep-sea dragon palace, the three dragon clan saint gods opened their majestic dragon eyes at the same time. It's done. Eastern Blue Dragon Lord clapped his hands and smiled. The other two Dragon Lords, Tai Bai Dragon Lord and Tai Xian Dragon Lord, exchanged a look. Their eyes were sparkling with divine light and they were excited. With an innate dragon lord in charge, our Linghai Dragon clan will not be reduced to high-level cannon fodder. A smile appeared on Tai Xian Dragon Lord's cold and stiff face. Tai Bai Dragon Lord's smile had a hint of bitterness. Previously, he had one of his avatars killed by the innate Dragon Lord. It was inevitable that he would hold a grudge against the innate Dragon Lord. If it weren't for the situation, he would not have let it go so easily. Even so, he could not help but ask Eastern Blue Dragon Lord, "Big brother, is the news true? Are the origin divine world's ancient gods really going to form the myriad god divine court?" Tai Bai, I know what you mean. Eastern Blue Dragon Lord's smile was replaced by a serious expression. The news can't be wrong. I vaguely heard from Tai Su Dragon Lord that this is the will of the oldest third step over gods. Tai Su Dragon Lord? Tai Bai Dragon Lord and Tai Xian Dragon Lord's expression changed slightly and turned solemn. Tai Su Dragon Lord was one of the few second-step Dragon Lords in the origin divine world. Eastern Blue Dragon Lord said again. Of course, this is also the will of the endless void and chaos. Separated for a long time, united for a long time, divided for a long time. In any case, we must be prepared. No matter what, we must not let our Linghai Dragon clan become a fat piece of meat for others to eat. Chapter 1472. At the same time, Primordial Xingqian School. As the news of Primordial Lord God establishing a divine system spread, the entire Primordial Xingqian School's disciples went into a frenzy. Countless disciples held gatherings. Now, as Qin Feng took control of the innate creation Tao's rules, some of the star monarchs that were chased away by Ziwei Star Monarch returned. Other than the original innate Pure Yang Deity King, innate North Underworld Deity King, Tai Yi Star Monarch, Tian Xiang Star Monarch, and Jialan Deity King. Among the 10 great true disciples, Shen and I, Ying Tianqing, and Shi Xian returned to Primordial Xingqian School. There were also the Ji family's sisters, Ji Qingxian and Ji Huang. The two ladies were originally from the ancient Ji family. After Ziwei Star Monarch made his move, they were secretly sent to the Ji family's ancient land by the Ji family's experts. These days, they were training in the Ji family's Void Continent. The Void Continent was an extraterrestrial world. However, it was also an incomplete world that had yet to give birth to a deity position. Other than that, Xin Xiu also appeared. However, the moment he appeared, he caused a huge commotion in the star sect. This was another monarch-level expert, one that had reached the peak of the monarch level. He received the heritage of the ancient Pure Land of Buddhism in the Spirit Sea realm and carried the power of the Buddhism expert. He was very likely to be the first Buddha in the Spirit Sea realm. Other than Xin Xiu, there were also some experts that received some incredible fortuitous encounters. They all grew stronger and some even became true gods. Ji Su, for example, went against her innate godly spirit body and obtained the ice element absolute freeze deity position. Guan Ruolin, for example, awakened the ice element ancient god's origin and became an ice element innate deity king. There were also light deity king Xiao Yuchan, lifeless sword king Zhang Xian, and sword Saint Yuan Daozhen. Light deity king Xiao Yuchan was also a genius. He was a star in the ancient era, the star monarch of light. Later, he received the heritage of the Sui sovereign, one of the 3 ancient sovereigns. He was also the reincarnation of an ancient great expert. His cultivation was so freakish that it was almost on par with the ancestor of techniques and Xin Xiu. Now, he had recovered the cultivation he had during the archaic era and even improved further. He was not far from the Emperor realm. It was the same for Lifeless Sword King. As the future Sword Lord, his talent far surpassed the ordinary ancient and ancient talents. Now, he was also a peak innate God King. Sword Saint Yuan Dao's true power was much weaker than the previous few, but his will was shocking, especially since he had received a part of the inheritance of the first sword ancestor. Even though he had yet to reach the level of God and looked as tough as a rock, his fighting prowess was still frightening. In fact, he was even capable of challenging God Kings. It was extremely heaven-defying. Many of the God King elders of primordial Xingqian school had high hopes for his future. In addition, there were also many Archean and ancient geniuses who were admitted to Xingqian school. Hunyuan Xingqian school was expanding at an incredible speed. Qin Feng didn't care about the undercurrent between the disciples and the elders. His focus was still on the Spirit Sea continent. While using the creator space to refine the Spirit Sea Void Great Universe's origin, he had also begun to construct the true inescapable net. With billions of galaxies as nodes, he constructed a huge network that encompassed the universe's stars and earth veins. That was once the supreme concept of Xingqian school. Using the inescapable net to restrain all living beings, it could also be used as a trading network to break the bottleneck of communication between all living beings. The inescapable net was built very quickly. It benefited from the billions of underworld kingdoms and dream kingdoms left behind by Wang Daoi. In fact, these two kingdoms spanned trillions of voids and already had the embryonic form of the inescapable net. However, it had to be the ancient Son of Heaven or the position of Heavenly Emperor. Only the ancient Son of Heaven or Heavenly Emperor could transform the Spirit Sea Void Great Universe's origin into an inescapable net that connected billions of living beings and trillions of small worlds. Of course, the most important part of the inescapable net was still the heavenly rules and heavenly rules. Xingqian school's heavenly rules and heavenly rules were formed from the power of rules that Xingqian school's disciples had condensed over countless years. It looked tight but was actually full of loopholes. Using the loopholes in the heavenly rules and heavenly rules, many Xingqian school's disciples had died unjustly. However, this time, Qin Feng used the Spirit Sea Void Great Universe's origin to weave it bit by bit. Together with the calculations of the creator space, it was instantly several times more advanced. Not only was it tight, but it also had many unbelievable powers. Many clones of the Xing god that were hiding, emperor-level experts with evil intentions, and even reincarnators from the various creator spaces were all exposed in front of the inescapable net that was taking shape. They were all found and killed one by one. There were always people who refused to give up. However, it was obvious that Qin Feng had the upper hand. Under such circumstances, all those who resisted could only die in despair. Qin Feng could sense that the creator space was refining more and more of the Spirit Sea Void Great Universe's origin. Soon, it was close to 1/10. As long as it was close to 1/10, he could start on the second task, which was to guide the many godly pulse experts under the creator space's control into the Spirit Sea Void Great Universe and completely turn the Spirit Sea into the God System's private backyard. However, not long after, in the Chaos Origin Star's main hall, Qin Feng was startled from his calculations of the innate universe Great Tao. Over a dozen God Kings charged into the hall together in a hustle and bustle. "What are you all doing?" He raised his head and looked at the 10 godly kings in front of the main hall. Hades Queen, Blood Evil King, Dark Underworld King, Black Evil King, Dark Fire King, White Bone King, Luan Hai King, Evil Good King, Een Mountain King, and Dead Sea King. The 10 godly kings of the Netherworld lineage knelt on the ground. "Your Majesty, please save Master's life. If your Majesty can save Master, we underworld gods of the Netherworld lineage will repay your Majesty's kindness even if we have to sacrifice our lives." The 10 godly kings kowtowed again. Sensing the commotion in the Chaos Origin Star's main hall, the gods who were cultivating in the various heavenly worlds rushed over. Rays of godly light landed on the Flying Cloud Mountain's main peak and entered the Chaos Origin Star's main hall. They all looked at the 10 godly kings kneeling on the ground. What's going on? What happened to the 10 kings of Netherworld? Among the gods, the godly kings with higher statuses gathered together. After the spirit sea void great universe leveled up, the number of innate gods and innate godly kings increased tremendously. There weren't many divine kings in the primal chaos star sect, especially after they had established many divine systems. They were at least slightly inferior to the 10 great divine sects and 10 great factions. However, the gap was being bridged. Furthermore, they were quickly catching up and even surpassing them. Among the godly kings, the leaders were Shinsu, the third sword ancestor, light deity King Xiao Yuchan, lifeless sword King Zhang Xian, Fu Tian, Ji Qingxian, Han Bing deity king, and the others. Ji Huang Tuoba Yi, Ling Dushu, and the others were also among the gods. Chapter 1473. Many people looked at the majestic white-robed master god sitting on the throne in the center, who seemed to be on par with the heavens. After so many years, this was the first time many deity kings saw their fellow disciple again. However, this fellow disciple was no longer the ordinary disciple, without any backing or background from back then. The majesty he exuded made even the powerful light deity kings feel reverence and respect from the bottom of their hearts. On the throne, Qin Feng's gaze vaguely landed on innate north deity King Yi Ding beside him. Sensing Qin Feng's gaze, Yi Ding smiled bitterly in his heart. Making me the scapegoat again. Although he complained in his heart, Yi Ding did not show any dissatisfaction. Now that he was in Chaos Xingqian school, he was Primordial Lord God's trusted aide. He stood out, turned around, looked at the Hades 10 kings and scolded them with a frown. Hades Empress, don't be unreasonable. Step down. Your Majesty, please save us. Hades Empress, Blood Evil King, Black Evil King, Black Evil King, Dark Fire King, White Bone King, Luan High King, Evil Good King, Een Mountain King, and Dead Sea King knelt on the ground and kowtowed to the white-clothed over-god again and again. On the side, innate north deity King frowned, and just as he was about to scold them again, the light deity King stood up from the throne. Everyone, please listen to me. The light deity King's strength was extraordinary. His combat strength was almost on par with the few innate deity emperors. As he stood up, he attracted the attention of many elders. On the throne, Qin Feng looked at light deity King Xiao Yuchan calmly. Xiao Yuchan cultivated the light god slaying art and obtained the ancient Sui sovereign's heritage. He had great potential and was one of the few in the sect who had the potential to reach the Dao fusing level. A faint smile appeared on Qin Feng's face. As he attained Dao, this light deity king finally let go of his past grudges and returned to the sect. Xiao Yuchan said, "Deity kings and deity emperors can understand your temperament. Great Monarch Six Paths was our sect's greatest genius and his death saddens us. If we can save Six Paths, I believe His Majesty won't just stand by and watch." He cupped his hands toward the throne, then turned around and said, "But as you all know, Six Paths Emperor failed his unification. Not only did his real body perish, but all his doppelgangers and even his original spirit brand perish. Although His Majesty is an over-god and is said to be omniscient and omnipotent, he still can't save a person whose true spirit has completely collapsed and vanished." Although they didn't want to admit it, the 10 kings still stopped kowtowing when they heard this. In the main hall, the god kings and god emperors wore heavy expressions. Reaching the divine king realm, wanting to take a step forward was already incredibly difficult. Ascending from godly king realm to godly emperor realm was not that bad. One only needed to slowly accumulate and refine the divinity. However, to break through to the emperor level, less than 1 in 100 would succeed. Not only did this require talent, but it also required luck. However, luck might be a huge and unbreakable not for the experts of other sects, but for the experts of Primordial Xingqian School, luck was no longer a big problem. After Yuanshi Great Monarch attained Dao, the sects of the spiritual sea realm bowed their heads and each sect offered 30% of their luck as tribute. primordial Xingqian school's luck was far stronger than that of the previous overlords. Although it wasn't a guaranteed breakthrough, there was still a 1 in 100 chance. 1 in 100. Although it seemed like a low chance, it was actually very high. Generally, it was 1 in 10,000 for a deity emperor to break through to the emperor level. However, even if deity emperors couldn't break through to the emperor level, they rarely perished. However, it was different for a perfected imperial emperor. When a perfected imperial emperor tried to break through, they would bring with them the endless void and all their power to break through to the next realm. Once they failed, not only their main body, but even their avatar's original spirit would be completely destroyed. Hades Empress, Blood Fiend King, Black Fiend King, Black Fiend King, Dark Fire King, White Bone King, Luan Hai King, Evil Good King, Dark Mountain King, and Dead Sea King all understood this principle. However, they were somewhat unwilling. Actually, you don't have to be so depressed. Although Senior Brother Wang's true spirit has collapsed and he has stepped into nirvana, it's not like he has no chance of revival. On the throne, Qin Feng suddenly spoke. What? Hades Empress, Blood Fiend King, Black Fiend King, Black Fiend King, Dark Fire King, White Bone King, Luan Hai King, Evil Good King, Dark Mountain King, and Dead Sea King suddenly raised their head. When the surrounding people heard this, they all looked over. May I ask, Your Majesty, can my master really be revived? Hades' Empress' voice was trembling. She raised her head and looked at the white-clothed Master God as if she was grabbing onto her last life-saving straw. Most of the surrounding God Kings were silent. This had already subverted their understanding of the world. Your Majesty, can a person whose true spirit has collapsed and whose soul has dispersed really be revived? The third sword ancestor, Duguxie, who was about to advance to emperor level, also looked at Qin Feng. Reviving an expert who had failed to converge the great path. This was unbelievable no matter how one heard it. In the main hall, Shinsu also frowned. At their level, they were well aware of the consequences of failing to break through. Not only would the current true spirit collapse, but the past, present, and future, their original spirit brand in the entire river of time would be completely destroyed by the backlash of the great path. Even if it was inconceivable for master gods to be able to traverse the river of time and pursue fate, it was impossible to save an existence that had completely collapsed. On the throne, Qin Feng met the gazes of the third sword ancestor and the other gods. However, he nodded. The number of Dian is 50 and 49 are used. Heaven has left a chance for survival. Although Emperor Six Paths has fallen, it's not as if he has no chance of revival. However, to seize this chance, even if it's me, it's like fishing for the moon in the water. Your Majesty, please be merciful. Hades Empress, Blood Evil Lord, Dark Underworld Lord, Black Evil Lord, Underworld Fire Lord, White Bone Lord, Luan Hai Lord, Evil Good Lord, Inshan Lord, and Dead Sea Lord were all delighted. As long as there was a chance, they would not give it up easily. Fine. I'll try my best with this body's supernatural power. Qin Feng nodded. He opened his eyes and his gaze fell on the center of the Netherworld Kingdom, which was the place where the food path of the two-dimensional abyss used to be. Qin Feng sighed slightly in his heart. In fact, if he could save Wang Daoyi, it would undoubtedly be a great boost for the god system he was about to establish. However, in his opinion, this was too difficult. If Wang Daoyi had not been the master of the food path of the two-dimensional abyss and had obtained the position of earthly emperor and left a trace in the origin ocean of the spirit sea realm, even he would not have been able to save him. However, even so, if he wanted to revive him, the chances were extremely slim. However, no matter what, he had to try his best. After pondering for a while, a mysterious aura emanated from his body. It was like a huge time vortex that suddenly pierced through the past time and space. At this moment, in the Genesis sect of the primordial divine land, An invisible figure suddenly appeared in the depths of the Genesis Sex Grotto heaven when it sensed the unbelievably huge scene above the earth marsh divine land. It was Taoist priest creation. After Qin Feng had attained the Tao, he had wanted to completely kill or expel Taoist priest creation. However, Taoist priest creation was nowhere to be seen. The time has come. Taoist priest creation glanced indifferently in the direction of the earth marsh divine land, and a cold smile flashed across his eyes. He waved his sleeve, and a spot of invisible light floated from his sleeve. Under the concealment of his secret technique, it quietly fell into the origin ocean of the spirit sea void great cosmos and began to silently nibble away at the origin ocean of the spirit sea void great cosmos. Chapter 1474. It's done. Shenwu continent, within the ancestral court of fortune. Several overgods had gathered. In the center of the hall was Taoist creation's main body, the creation overgod. The limestone overgods and serene jade overgods stood on either side of the hall. Of course, this was only a clone. The limestone overgods and serene jade overgods did not have any direct relationship with the creation overgod. The three overgods were merely working together for mutual benefit. The limestone overgods and serene jade overgods did not dare to come with their main bodies. Even if their clones had come, the two overgods would have set up a trap. Even if their clones were captured, they would be able to immediately ensure that their secrets and the location of their overgod space would not be exposed. On the central throne, Taoist creation nodded slightly, a cold sneer appearing in his eyes. Below the stage, the limestone master god and the serene jade master god exchanged a glance and nodded to themselves. In particular, the limestone overgod's eyes were filled with a sinister glint. Many of the god systems did not like Qin Feng monopolizing the spirit-sea void cosmos, and were jealous of him. However, the limestone overgod was not. Qin Feng had once used the spirit-sea realm's will to counterattack and severely injure the limestone overgod. The limestone overgod hated Qin Feng to the core. In particular, many of the secrets regarding the limestone overgod's space had been stolen, which made him feel like a fishbone was stuck in his throat. The limestone overgod had wholeheartedly wanted to wait until the end of the epoch, when the gods were forced out of the spirit-sea realm. Then, he would properly deal with Qin Feng. Who would have thought that after the spirit-sea realm's advancement, that person in the middle of the eye would break through in such a short time and become a level 16 innate sacred god. An innate sacred god. A level 16 sacred god was the symbol of a powerhouse in the great thousand realms, but the true innate sacred gods were still the true innate sacred gods. Although acquired sacred gods were also level 16 sacred gods, they were much weaker than innate sacred gods. Innate sacred gods were indestructible, and only termination-type innate sacred gods could kill a level 16 sacred god of the same level. However, they could also be killed by other sacred gods. Other innate sacred gods could only be suppressed and could not be killed. However, acquired sacred gods were not in this category. Although Hotian sacred gods also controlled a great Tao law, they were innately much weaker. Not only could they not die, but they could also be easily suppressed or even killed. Now that Qin Feng had become an innate saint god, the threat he posed to Limestone Lord God was so great that Limestone Lord God couldn't sleep at night. After the Hotian holy god broke through, the Master God's space would be hidden in the endless void and chaos. Under normal circumstances, it would be very difficult to capture it. Unfortunately, this did not apply to Qin Feng. The information about the creator space had already been leaked, and Qin Feng had caught him red-handed. Otherwise, the Limestone Master God would not have dragged the Serene Jade Master God to look for the Creation Master God. Actually, he had originally sought out the 3 Dragon Lords of the Spirit Sea Dragon race. Back then, Qin Feng had personally slain a clone of the Grand White Dragon Lord, one of the 3 dragon lords of the Spirit Sea Dragon God system. The limestone sovereign was filled with hope. But to his disappointment, the spiritual sea draconic divine system had actually rejected him. Left with no other choice, he sought out the creation Master God. However, both the limestone Master God and the serene jade Master God knew that the creation Master God was not a kind person in the primordial age. The two of them were asking a tiger for its skin. On the other side, the serene jade Master God was smiling, but he was secretly regretting it. Some of his reincarnators were killed by Qin Feng in the Spirit Sea continent, and a portion of the Master God Space's information was leaked. Similar to the limestone Master God's experience, he was furious. Hence, the limestone Master God came to recruit him. He was prepared to work with the creation Master God to teach Qin Feng a lesson. But now, it seemed like the creation Master God had other plans. That primeval Master God was not simple either. If he succeeded, he would be able to seize the Spirit Sea Void Great Cosmos. But if he failed, the primeval Master God would not let it go so easily. As though he had seen the limestone Master God, the serene jade Master God's eyes were filled with worry. Taoist creation said calmly, "Don't worry, the primeval Master God will not be able to escape death this time. Once I seize the Spirit Sea Void Great Cosmos, I will definitely give you a share." The limestone Master God was shocked and hurriedly cupped his hands. "In that case, thank you, Your Majesty creation." The serene jade Master God smiled, but his heart was filled with worry. Spirit Sea, Earth Swamp Divine Region. Qin Feng's divine power erupted and opened up the river of time. He traced the past and searched for traces of the primordial spirit of the great Emperor of the 6 Paths, Tao Yi. According to Qin Feng's understanding, generally speaking, when a great perfection emperor-level expert failed the Tao unification, his primordial spirit would be destroyed, and his primordial spirit would be destroyed. His imprint would be completely annihilated in the past, present, and future. No one would know that this great perfection emperor-level expert had existed. For example, there would be no records of the great emperors in the Spirit Sea realm, such as the Thunder Emperor, Thousand Evil Taoist, Heavenly Spirit Taoist, and Blood Spirit Emperor, who had died in his hands. The backlash of the great Tao would erase all traces and memories of the person who had failed the Tao unification. Under normal circumstances, the experts of the primordial Xingqian school, including the Hades Empress, Blood Evil Lord, Dark Underworld Lord, Black Evil Lord, Underworld Fire Lord, White Bone Lord, Luan High Lord, Evil Good Lord, Een Mountain Lord, and Dead Sea Lord, would completely forget about the existence of the great Emperor of the 6 Paths Qin Feng had the intention to investigate. This situation was simply too strange. The immense divine power penetrated the river of time. Even the river of time seemed to slow down under the immense divine power. Many scenes appeared in Qin Feng's eyes. He quickly traced back to 3 months ago. A phenomenon that seemed like the sky was falling and the earth was cracking appeared. A huge resistance appeared. It involved the Tao unification of several great perfection emperor-level experts and the Spirit Sea realm's advancement. Even though Qin Feng was a peak level 16 saint god, he still felt a sense of strain. Rumble. In the sky above the Earth Marsh State, countless bolts of lightning appeared. Dark clouds covered the sky as if there was a terrifying heavenly might contained within. At this moment, in the primordial Xingqian school, the gods looked at the central throne in shock. On Qin Feng's palm, it was as if they saw the scene of the great Emperor of the 6 Paths failing the Tao unification. Master! The Hades Empress, Blood Evil Lord, Dark Underworld Lord, Dark Underworld Lord, Underworld Fire Lord, White Bone Lord, Luan High Lord, Evil Good Lord, Een Mountain Lord, Dead Sea Lord. The 14 disciples of the Hades lineage present could not help but cry out. The scene of the great perfection emperor-level experts' Tao unification once again appeared in their minds. Soon, a terrifying sword light appeared in the sky. It was the scene of Qin Feng killing 6 great perfection emperor-level experts in the past. That terrifying scene caused the souls of all the godly kings and godly emperors to tremble. It was an indescribable shock. The slight trace of divine might that leaked out was enough to easily kill godly kings and godly emperors. However, at the same time, everyone's expression was strange. Many people noticed a detail before the great emperor of the 6 paths, Dao Yi's death. There have been a lot of rewards in the book review section recently. Today, there was even a reward of 700 yuan from my book friend, Ma Junlong. The author bows. Thank you very much for your support. Chapter 1475. A soundless streak of light abruptly disappeared in the instant that the Dao integration stage phenomenon came to an abrupt end. That strand of dim light was mixed within the vast phenomenon, and if it wasn't for Qin Feng reconstructing space, he would absolutely be unable to notice that extremely secretive movement. That invisible stream of light directly entered the center of the Netherworld Kingdom, as if it had entered the center of the Netherworld Lord's space. That's the Earth Emperor Mirror? Hades Queen, Blood Evil Lord, Dark Underworld Lord, Black Evil Lord, Underworld Fire Lord, White Bone Lord, Luan High Lord, Evil Good Lord, Een Mountain Lord, Dead Sea Lord, and the other Netherworld deity kings were stunned. It was an ancient-looking mirror that suppressed the boundless Netherworld. It could vaguely see through the reincarnation of heaven and earth and guide the life and death of the myriad worlds. It was a spiritual treasure nurtured by the Netherworld Kingdom. An acquired spiritual treasure was a spiritual treasure that corresponded to the postnatal reincarnation Dao among the 3,000 acquired Dao. Acquired spiritual treasures were similar to connate spiritual treasures as they corresponded to the Daos of heaven and earth. They were unique and of a higher level than connate spiritual treasures. In terms of power, acquired spiritual treasures were not inferior to connate spiritual treasures. However, in terms of profoundness, acquired spiritual treasures were slightly inferior to connate spiritual treasures. Similar to the primordial void universe, where there were 49 connate Daos and 3,000 acquired Daos, there should be 49 connate spiritual treasures and 3,000 acquired spiritual treasures. His spiritual sea had just finished upgrading and was slightly inferior, with only 2 connate Daos and 800 acquired Dao. That corresponded to 2 connate spiritual treasures and 800 acquired spiritual treasures. And because Qin Feng had already occupied the connate Dao seed of the connate creation Dao, he could only nurture 1 connate spiritual treasure at most. To be precise, the Earth Emperor Mirror had yet to become a spiritual treasure, and its connate Dao seed had yet to be nurtured. However, as the Netherworld Kingdom strengthened and reincarnation returned, it would be born soon. On the central throne, Qin Feng glanced at the Netherworld deity kings. Ordinary people might not know, but he knew that the Earth Emperor Mirror was the natal spiritual treasure of the 6 Paths Emperor, Daoi. It was nurtured by the Sorcerer King's spiritual treasure. When Qin Feng saw this treasure, he understood that 6 Paths Emperor Wang Daoi was not dead. He had made it through the final trial and was truly able to survive. As long as the primordial spirit and the primordial spirit were fully fused with the post-celestial reincarnation Dao seed, he would be able to take the form of the post-celestial reincarnation Dao Patriarch with the earthly emperor's treasure mirror. This senior brother Wang sure has some tricks up his sleeve. Qin Feng thought to himself. If he hadn't noticed that something was wrong, he would have thought that Dao Yi, the great emperor of 6 paths, had died. Hades Empress, Blood Fiend King, Dark Underworld King, Black Fiend King, Dark Fire King, White Bone King, Luan High King, Evil Good King, Een Mountain King, Dead Sea King. They quickly understood. Congratulations to the 10 Netherworld Kings. At this moment, the gods finally understood what was going on. After a moment of astonishment, they understood what was going on. Her expression was like she was in a dream. It wouldn't be long before the second sacred god of the spirit sea void great cosmos would be born. However, many of them weren't too happy. Instead, they were worried. They glanced at the primeval Lord God on the throne in the middle. As the saying goes, one monk carries water to drink while two monks carry water to drink. Two tigers cannot live on one mountain. It might not be a good thing for two lords to appear in one sect. However, the emperors and emperors didn't really care. When two tigers cannot live on one mountain, it meant that two of them were of equal strength. Only then would there be conflict. However, the primeval Lord God was not only an innate sacred god, but he was also obviously stronger than the sacred god of reincarnation who was about to be born. There was no doubt about it. "All right, you can all leave now." On the throne, Qin Feng waved his hand. Ever since the 10 Netherworld kings knew that the sacred god of reincarnation had successfully attained his Tao and was about to be born, their minds were no longer here. Seeing this, they immediately left and prepared to return to the Netherworld kingdom to protect him, to prevent anyone from interfering. After everyone left, Qin Feng looked at them meaningfully. Dao Yi, the great emperor of 6 paths, was not as close and trusting to him as he had imagined. If that wasn't the case, why would he hide everything? However, this was human nature. "Wang Daoyi, senior brother Wang, I hope you won't make things difficult for me." As he muttered, Qin Feng's eyes flashed fiercely. Then, Qin Feng's gaze fell on the spirit sea void's origin ocean. There was a strange look on his face. When he had attacked just now, he had shaken the spirit sea's origin sea. The Master God's space, which had been refining and monitoring the spirit sea's origin sea, had clearly sensed something strange. Although that strange feeling disappeared in a flash, it was unusually real. If not for the fact that the creator space had advanced to the chaos grade and had many more functions, his essence spirit might not have sensed it. However, upon closer inspection, the creator space's power searched the entire spirit sea's origin ocean but found nothing strange. However, the more this was the case, the more Qin Feng felt that something was wrong. Ever since he attained his Tao, Qin Feng had never let his guard down. The various god systems would definitely not let him turn the spirit sea void great cosmos into his personal backyard. There would definitely be people who would not let it go. There were also the emperor-level experts of the 72 mysterious sects who were completely blocked by him. How could they not be jealous? "I'd like to see who can't help but jump out this time." Although he did not find anything in the spirit sea's origin ocean, Qin Feng did discover something. Qin Feng's gaze fell on the creation sect of the primeval divine lands. The unification of the primordial spirit, the comprehension of the heaven rank, and the deduction from the creator space. Although there was no evidence, all the heavenly mysteries pointed to the creation sect. This matter was most likely related to Taoist creation. At this moment, Qin Feng's expression changed. There was a commotion outside the main hall. Qin Feng's thoughts moved and his divine consciousness saw the little female dragon Aohor's figure outside the main hall. "What are you doing? Do you know who the primeval master god is?" "He's my master. Get out of the way. I have something important to report to my master. Miss Hwar, please don't make things difficult for us disciples." His Majesty said that without his orders, no one is to disturb his cultivation. In front of the main hall, the 2 golden-armored king gods looked bitter. As the guards of the Master God, they could not be derelict in their duties. However, Aohor was right. She was the personal servant of His Majesty. If they offended her, they would not have a good life after the god system was established. "Let her in." At this moment, Qin Feng's voice came from the main hall. "Yes, Your Majesty." The two heaved a sigh of relief when they heard the voice and quickly made way. The little female dragon in red snorted. She was indignant. Before she left, she stepped on the 2 king gods' feet. The 2 golden-armored king gods' feet were in great pain. Their faces were distorted, but they could only endure it and smile bitterly. Chapter 1476. Deng deng deng. A series of footsteps could be heard outside the hall. Soon, Qin Feng saw the little female dragon rushing in. She went straight to the throne as soon as she entered. A pair of mischievous and strange eyes sized up Qin Feng from head to toe with a trace of naivety. Among the 4 dragon race messengers, the East Sea Dragon Prince Ao Qing and the Sunflower Water Dragon King Ao Li had already left with their mission. They were preparing to return and discuss the future of the 5 Seas dragon race. Now, the primordial Lord God had agreed to become the 4th Dragon Lord of the dragon race, the 9 Underworld Dragon Lord. As the 9 Underworld Dragon Lords' territory, they had to reconsider whether to stay in the Spirit Sea continent or head to the Myriad Demon Ancestral Court in the Myriad Demon Great World to serve under the 3 Dragon Lord. Other than Ao Qing, Ao Li, Ao Xiu, and Ao Wer stayed. Qin Feng's gaze landed on the little female dragon. Looking at the little dragon, his lips curled into a smile. The little female dragon's cultivation was not weak. Back then, in the desolate Dragon Gate, with Qin Feng's help, she transformed from a Jiao dragon into a true dragon body. When the Spirit Sea Void Great Cosmos evolved, it brought along the postnatal and innate true dragon body. And not just any true dragon, but an innate dragon king. For that, she gained the attention of the 3 dragon lords and became a rising star of the dragon race. In the 5 Seas, she was also one of the few innate dragon kings of the South Sea Fire true dragon race. An innate dragon king was equivalent to an innate god king. Although the Spirit Sea Great Cosmos had just leveled up, there were many ancient and archaic experts who had reversed the Xiantian realm and achieved a breakthrough to the innate deity king body. Although this number seemed huge, it was still extremely small compared to the trillions of void worlds that the Spirit Sea Great Cosmos had leveled up. After the evolution, the Spirit Sea continent was unimaginably huge. Before the evolution, the Spirit Sea was divided into 3,000 spirit regions. After the evolution, it was called 30,000 spirit regions, but it might not include the expanded territory of the Spirit Sea continent. There were even many innate chaos continents outside the 4 seas. Those innate chaos continents were born from innate chaos essence chi and innate primordial spiritual chi. Each of them was huge, and many of them had evolved into innate god races. All in all, the reappearance of the little female dragon was indeed refreshing. For some reason, Qin Feng thought of Red Lotus when he looked at the little carp that had transformed into a dragon with him. Red Lotus was still nowhere to be seen. Even with his rank 16, innate saint god power, he still couldn't find any trace of her. This made him very anxious. Collecting his thoughts, Qin Feng's gaze fell on the little female dragon. Looking at the shy and bashful little female dragon under his gaze, Qin Feng said indifferently, "Speak, what's the matter?" The little female dragon glanced at the white-robed sovereign with a slightly aggrieved expression. Then, she composed herself and said with a pout, "The Eastern Blue Dragon Lord has issued a divine decree. He wants you to be careful of the limestone over God and the serene jade over God." Limestone, serene jade? Qin Feng's expression changed. The little female dragon nodded. His Majesty of the Eastern Heavens said that they have colluded with Taoist creation and are plotting something. You must be careful. Taoist creation? A hint of coldness flashed in Qin Feng's eyes. Everything made sense. Combined with the news brought by the little female dragon and the trace of strangeness he had detected earlier, it was obvious that Taoist creation was behind this. He just didn't know what kind of unspeakable plot the 3 king gods were plotting. Qin Feng's heart was heavy. Taoist creation wasn't an ordinary rank 16, innate saint god, but a rank 17 second step innate over god. The threat he posed to Qin Feng was much more direct than that of Tao ancestor Empress Hua. The power of a second step innate over God was unquestionable. If not for the protection of the spirit sea void great cosmos, Taoist creation would have killed his way to his doorstep long ago. Qin Feng felt very vexed. He could sense that Taoist creation was definitely going to make a move, and it would be very disadvantageous for him. However, there were no traces of it at all. This made him a little anxious. But soon, Qin Feng's heart was filled with supreme calmness, which turned into a sword and extinguished this irritation. Qin Feng knew very well that there was no need to be anxious. The most important thing to do now was to sort out the situation and ultimately destroy Taoist creation's scheme. Thank His Majesty Dong Tsang on my behalf. Qin Feng raised his head. The little female dragon nodded. Although she was reluctant, she still went down. Seeing the little female dragon leave, Qin Feng stood up from the central throne. His whole body emitted waves of coldness. Looks like I have to make a trip to the creation sect. A hint of coldness flashed in Qin Feng's eyes. The primeval divine land. This was one of the 9 great divine lands of the Spirit Sea continent. Before heaven and earth had advanced, this place was the center of the 3,000 spirit zones. It was a place of spiritual beauty. After heaven and earth had advanced, the divine spirit veins underground had advanced to chaos spirit veins. The rich connate chaos yuan qi was extremely dense. Within the mountains and rivers, there were many connate life forms, connate sacred spirits, and connate divine spirits that were being nurtured. Many mountains were shrouded in auspicious clouds and purple mist. It was a scene of spiritual beauty. However, compared to the earth-swamped divine land, this place looked a little bleak. Although there were many spiritual roots, spiritual trees, and spiritual beasts in the mountains, their grades were extremely low. If it had been before heaven and earth had advanced, it would have been a sacred realm. But now, it seemed like it had been plundered by someone. The creation sect was huge, and had always been the leader of the 10 great divine sections. It had many disciples, geniuses, and divine spirit. Even the ever-changing Chaos Xingqian school could not compete with it in a short period of time. There were many disciples cultivating in the various mountains. At a glance, they were all connate sacred spirits and divine spirit. However, Qin Feng frowned. No matter how he looked at it, it was not normal. Although there were many disciples cultivating here, most of them were not talented. Most of them were connate sacred spirits, low connate divine spirits, and mid connate divine spirits were extremely rare. High connate divine spirits were even rarer. This was an extremely abnormal situation. According to the Creation Sect's foundation, this should not be the case. High connate divine dragons and innate deity kings, even if they were rare, in the top of the 10 great divine sects like the Creation Sect, even if there were not many of them, they should not be this rare. This was especially true when the creation god system had worked together with many other god systems to recruit high-grade gods from all over the world to enrich their god system. Qin Feng frowned. Combined with the scenes he had seen on the various spiritual mountains, there seemed to be only one possibility: run. Taoist creator was planning to take the profits and leave the Ling High continent with the creation sect's experts and foundation. Qin Feng frowned and his eyes turned gloomy. If Taoist Zhao Hua was allowed to escape with so many high-level gods and innate deity kings, it would be a huge blow to the newly ascended Ling High continent. This cut was akin to cutting off a piece of land in his back garden, and Taoist creator wanted to run away with it. This would be a great blow to the newly advanced Ling High continent. Chapter 1477. Run away with the money? Especially when he had fled with the primeval overgod's personal belongings. Qin Feng sneered in his heart. His gaze swept across the creation sect's mountain gate. A divine light blasted out. Rumble. It was as though countless thunderclouds were gushing out. Instantly, layers of spacetime appeared above the mountain peak. It was like the Tower of the 33 Skies. The base of the tower was made up of giant god kingdoms. Countless god spirits were refining every part of the tower. There was a strange power that seemed to be quietly corroding the crystal walls, making them weaker and weaker. It was a kind of mysterious power, incomparably gloomy. The heaven-opening baleful chi was a terrifying baleful chi condensed from the resentment in the hearts of billions of living beings who could not live forever after the creation of the world. The baleful aura was so corrosive that even ordinary god-emperors would be corroded into nothingness. It could be seen that if given a few more months, it would definitely be able to drill through the crystal wall. It's the primeval sovereign. Oh no, we've been discovered. At this time, several creation sects' emperor realm masters in the top divine kingdoms of the world pagoda paled. Boundless divine light converged. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled in this peaceful world, and it was filled with a terrifying aura. Countless high-level innate gods and innate deity kings paled. Patriarch, what should we do? The remaining Heavenly King of Termination, Heavenly King Doomsday, and several other emperor-level experts stared intently at the middle-aged Taoist in white, as if he was their savior. Taoist Creation's expression remained unchanged as he spoke indifferently. Don't be afraid. Taoist Creation had long prepared himself for the possibility of being discovered. At this point, the Triastrimsa Fortune World Tower had already taken shape. With the power of the gods and Taoist creators' control, even an innate saint god wouldn't be able to break through it in less than 10 days. By then, he would be able to bring the gods in the Triastrimsa Fortune World Tower out of the Linghai continent. I can also use this to attract his attention. Thinking of the important matter in his heart, Taoist Creation sneered. His gaze fell upon the white-robed sovereign below the Fortune Mountain range. In the end, he was just a lucky brat who had just ascended to the innate saint god realm. He thought that he would be able to occupy one of the 33 heavens realms after becoming an innate saint god. Little did he know that he was just courting death. With a slight smile on his face, he turned into a ray of light and appeared before the mountain gate of the Creation sect. Halt, Your Majesty! He took a step forward and blocked in front of Qin Feng. Taoist Creation, leave them here and you can leave. Qin Feng glanced at Taoist Creation, who was standing in his way. Then, numerous sparkling and translucent swords appeared in his hand. A peerlessly sharp aura that could split the heavens emerged from the war god's sword. Primeval Lord God, you're still too young. You should know that sometimes it's not a good thing to eat alone. Taoist Creation's expression was indifferent, as if he was a senior who was teaching him. Taking advantage of your seniority. Qin Feng sneered. Taoist Creation thought that he could put on the airs of a senior and flaunt his seniority just because he had achieved the Tao in ancient times. He was just trying to take advantage of Zhongyu. The Ling Hai continent had just ascended not long ago and was in a period of growth. If he allowed someone to take away so many innate gods and deity kings, not only would they be able to cultivate a third innate Tao in a short period of time, their future potential would also be greatly affected. A sharp glint flashed across Zhongyu's eyes. As if he saw the cold glint in Qin Feng's eyes, Taoist Creation waved his sleeves and smiled. Of course, there's nothing you can do if you don't agree. What an arrogant old man. Qin Feng's eyes flashed fiercely. This Taoist Creation really thought that he, Qin Feng, was a soft persimmon. Zhongyu attacked in an instant. A vast sword ray pierced through the sky and enveloped Taoist Creation and the Triastrimsa Fortune World Tower. The vast sword ray was strong enough to destroy time and space. In the depths of the Triastrimsa Fortune World Tower, countless high-level innate gods and deity kings had their souls completely shattered under the sword ray. Child's play. Bang! Zhongyu opened his mouth, and the Triastrimsa Fortune World Tower behind him returned to his back as if it had become one with him. In the next moment, a heavenly melody exploded and the vast sword ray froze. heavenly melody of creation. This was a supreme divine technique that Taoist creation had comprehended. It possessed incredible power. The power of the gods? Qin Feng's heart sank. With so much power from the gods, although Taoist creation was only an incarnation, his strength was no weaker than an ordinary level 16, innate saint god. But I'm not an ordinary innate saint god. With a thought from Qin Feng, there seemed to be a 9th-grade lotus slowly rotating above his head. Behind him, a gigantic hazy god spirit that was 10,000 feet tall appeared. Avatar? Taoist creation's face changed slightly and his expression turned solemn. However, his heart trembled violently. When an ordinary expert broke through the Great Thousand's boundary, they would gain control of a Tao and turn into an innate saint god. Then, they would slowly comprehend the Tao and raise the grade of the 3 flowers above their head. At the same time, with every 3 grades, some powerful skills would appear. The most representative of this was the Avatar. The appearance of the Avatar meant that the innate saint god's Tao had reached perfection and was close to perfection. The Avatar's power was extremely strong. Similarly, it was also divided into different grades. It could be divided into the Xiantian grade, Pure Yang grade, Heavenly King grade, and Immortal grade. Generally speaking, a postnatal saint god would not be able to give birth to an avatar. Primeval overgod Qin Feng had just broken through to the 16th level less than a year ago, but his 3 flowers had already given birth to an avatar. This was so shocking that even Taoist creation almost lost his composure. After that, a strand of ghastly killing intent that was difficult to restrain erupted from his heart, and it was like a seed that had instantly sprouted into a towering tree. He must die. With such a foundation and talent, I can't let him continue to grow. Qin Feng stared coldly at Taoist creation. He didn't use the power of his Dharma body. His 3 flowers of the Great Path had reached perfection because it was too fast. His Dharma body had just been born. At this time, it was still in the process of being nurtured. If he rashly used the Avatar's power, it would affect its grade. The gigantic godly spirit's figure disappeared in a flash and sank into the depths of the 3 flowers. The power of the Tao rotated and was nurtured. Vaguely, it seemed to be alive and turned into a ray of light. It was a milky white ray of light. All of a sudden, there seemed to be countless illusory figures. There seemed to be countless space-time, countless heavens and earth, countless worlds, countless living beings, and infinite power. Finally, they turned into a terrifying wave that seemed to drown all the worlds in the universe. Taoist creation's pupils contracted tightly. In the next moment, he was drowned in the milky white divine light. Chapter 1478. This sword strike didn't kill Taoist creation with a single strike. Taoist creation's figure disappeared, and a moment later, he turned into a tens of thousands of feet tall, dazzling, and crystalline tower. It emitted endless sacred light. Its defensive power was beyond imagination. Although Qin Feng did not use his full strength in this sword strike, it was enough to suppress and kill an ordinary Hotian holy god. Its Taoist creation's avatar, the Trayastrimsa Great Light Holy Creation Tower. The huge commotion alarmed a portion of the god systems. Some experts recognized the radiant Holy Creation Tower that stood on the horizon as if it was suppressing billions of boundless small worlds. Taoist creation was one of the few second-step lords in the Chaos Sea, and his name shook the various worlds. In particular, his pure Yang avatar, the Trayastrimsa Great Light Holy Creation Tower, was even more iconic. Its defense was unparalleled, and it was also quite famous among the many avatars. This time, Taoist creation put in a lot of effort. He actually let a clone bring in a portion of his avatar's power. Creation of heaven and earth. The huge Traiastrimsa Great Light Holy Creation Tower that emitted endless sacred light turned into a crystalline light that broke through the sword light and instantly slammed towards Qin Feng. "Do you think I can't do anything to you with a turtle shell?" Although he was a little surprised, Qin Feng's expression did not change. Above his head, the three flowers of the great Tao pulsed as if there was endless divine power surging from the flowers. Creation of good fortune. Endless spacetime, endless heaven and earth, countless worlds, countless living beings, and endless power. At this moment, the power was even more vast. As the sword slashed out, the billions of living beings in the void seemed to see a terrifying heavenly river crossing the heavens, imprisoning the unknown great Tao laws. Bang! 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 The huge Traiastrimsa Great Light Holy Creation Tower was cut open from the middle, and a huge gap appeared. Hidden in a divine tower in the depths of the Traiastrimsa Great Light Holy Creation Tower, many high-level gods and innate god kings suffered a terrifying backlash, and 1/5 of them were annihilated. Although the Traiastrimsa Great Light Holy Creation Tower was severely damaged, it was not destroyed immediately. However, Taoist creation was taken aback by Qin Feng's strength. He underestimated Qin Feng. Break! With a furious roar, the Traiastrimsa Great Light Holy Tower of Good Fortune borrowed the remaining power of the sword and slammed into the crystal wall. Boom! It was as if heaven and earth were resonating together as a huge crack appeared. Behind the crack, one could faintly see countless auras of primordial chaos filling the place. Taoist creation wanted to run away. "Where do you think you're going?" Qin Feng sneered. The primordial spirit lotus could sense the endless anger of the spirit sea void great universe's origin. At the same time, the origin source of the void great cosmos seemed to support his body with a huge amount of power. In a short moment, he seemed to have become the god of creation of the spirit sea great cosmos. Clearly, the origin of the spirit sea void great cosmos would instinctively reject an intruder like Taoist creation who wanted to steal the origin power of the great cosmos. Qin Feng felt that the ancient emperor's imperial jade seal in his body was strengthened by more than 1/10 in an instant. It temporarily transformed into the celestial emperor's imperial jade seal. His figure was changing. The emperor's qi overflowed from his body, turning into the 9 dragons emperor's robe and the flat sky emperor's crown. At the same time, the emperor's god investiture art seemed to have leveled up. An even higher level monarch art evolved from the emperor's god investiture art. Celestial emperor's god investiture art. At this moment, Qin Feng could vaguely feel that with just a thought, he could overturn rivers and seas and control billions of living beings. It was as if he possessed a power that could change the heaven and earth. Not good. Taoist creation clearly felt the change. Qin Feng's aura seemed to have increased by more than 10 times. He activated the avatar's full power. At the same time, a hint of ruthlessness flashed in his eyes. In an instant, a terrifying divine fire burst out from the Traiastrimsa Great Light of Fortune Tower of 33 heavens, refining the spiritual treasures, spiritual herbs, spiritual roots, and even the gods into a ball of yuan qi and fusing them into the Traiastrimsa Great Light of Fortune Tower of 33 heavens. Taoist creation was also extremely ruthless. Seeing that he couldn't run away, he simply refined all of his disciples to death. It was a pity for those high-level innate gods. It was rare for an innate deity king to encounter such a great era and cultivate an innate god body. But now they were all refined by Taoist creation and turned into nourishment. Hong Long Long, the Traiastrimsa Great Light of Fortune Tower of 33 heavens, accelerated towards the space-time crack. In the blink of an eye, the tip of the tower had already entered the space-time crack. "Still think you can run away?" Qin Feng sneered coldly. "Heavenly monarch god sealing art." He shot out a ray of light. Suddenly, a vast divine light swept across the Traiastrimsa great light of fortune tower of 33 heavens. It was as if there was a charter in his mouth. Visible to the naked eye, endless heaven and earth's wrath was being blasted onto the Traiastrimsa great light of fortune tower through Qin Feng's hands. The rays of light were like maggots that crawled into the depths of the Traiastrimsa great light of fortune tower, sealing the Traiastrimsa great light of fortune tower inch by inch. In the depths of the Traiastrimsa great light of fortune tower, Taoist creation's angry roar could be faintly heard. Open! An aura that could destroy the heavens and the earth erupted. Faintly, Taoist creation's extremely cold face appeared on the tower wall. His eyes were ferocious. After being hit by the heavenly monarch god's sealing art, Taoist creation knew that he had underestimated Qin Feng this time. Not only was Qin Feng's strength terrifying, but he had also temporarily become a heavenly monarch. Taoist creation no longer had any chance of winning, so he might as well self-destruct to severely injure Qin Feng. At the very least, he had to delay the primeval master god in front of him and buy time for the one in the Spirit Sea's origin sea. As long as that existence could devour the Spirit Sea's origin sea and be reborn, when the time came, they would definitely be able to coordinate with the outside and change the Spirit Sea realm's master. However, at this moment, a boundless power suddenly erupted from the depths of the Traiastrimsa great light of fortune tower, instantly blasting apart the various structures of the Traiastrimsa great light of fortune tower from the inside. Not good! Taoist creation's expression changed, and he subconsciously raised his power to shatter his avatar. However, at this moment, the gods that had been completely shattered and turned into Yuan Qi to replenish his body were actually resurrected in his body. At the same time, a mysterious power, through an incomprehensible method, directly poured into the resurrected gods, causing thousands of threads of karma to entangle Taoist creation's avatar's primordial spirit, completely sealing away his divine power and even a trace of the lotus flower projection of the great Tao. It's karma. Taoist creation also reacted. His face was somewhat ashen. He had shattered the gods and turned them into Yuan Qi to strengthen his divine power in a short period of time. However, these gods were born in this world and were innately linked by karma and destiny. It was precisely because of this that the heavenly monarch god's sealing art penetrated deep into his body, following this mysterious trajectory and completely sealing him away. The huge Traiastrimsa great light of fortune tower was pulled out. It was like a sacred pagoda that fell into Qin Feng's palm and shrunk inch by inch. At this time, in the divine martial great world, Taoist creation's main body suddenly opened his eyes. His doppelganger was actually captured alive. Chapter 1479. Taoist creation is going to suffer a huge loss this time. In the void of the outer realm, in the ancient upper realms, many of the foreign overgods who were staring in the direction of the Spirit Sea immediately noticed this scene. For a moment, many of them sneered. For most clones to be destroyed, a bit of backlash was nothing much to a lord. However, a clone that contained the power of an embodiment was different, and it had been captured alive. This was quite dangerous, as the clone contained the Tao body, primordial spirit cultivation methods, and even a portion of the embodiment's mysteries. If someone saw through it, it would be quite dangerous. Shenwu Continent. In the center of the continent, atop a giant ancient tree, Taoist creation's body was surrounded by countless divine lights. His angry aura was pulsing, and the sky for tens of millions of kilometers seemed to tremble in response to his anger. Countless ancient life forms within hundreds of millions of kilometers had lost their minds because of the anger of a second step over God. Their faces were pale, and they could not even express their fear. The primeval over God. Taoist creation lost his composure as he stared gloomily in the direction of the Spirit Sea continent. The primeval overgod's strength had exceeded his expectations. Not only had the primeval overgod not been held back, but even his clone had been captured alive. Now, his only hope was that the primeval overgod would be faster. As long as the primeval overgod broke through the Spirit Sea continent, he would still have a chance. Otherwise, if the secret of his clone was exposed, it would be a considerable threat to his main body. To the side, the limestone overgod and the serene jade overgod were also secretly shocked. Qin Feng's savagery had exceeded their expectations. He had actually caused Taoist creation to suffer such a huge loss. Taoist creation had been born at the beginning of the Spirit Sea, and he was only slightly later than primordial chaos Taoist. Even so, he had rarely suffered losses in this sea of chaos. Today, his clone had been sealed by an innate saint god who had just attained the Tao, causing him to suffer such a huge loss. However, the two saint gods still wore looks of pity on their faces, and no one knew what they were thinking. At the entrance to the creation sect in the primeval divine lands, Qin Feng grabbed the Trayastrimsa Great Light Holy Tower of Creation. The majestic divine power on his body gradually faded away, and the dense purple aura quickly dissipated. Qin Feng closed his eyes. Inside his body, the power of the origin of the Spirit Sea on the newly formed Celestial Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal was rapidly receding. It was about to degenerate back into the Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal. However, Qin Feng seized this opportunity to operate the Creator Space and absorb the rainbow origin power in the Spirit Sea. This speed was very fast. Originally, he was only a little over 6%, but in a few moments, it had increased by nearly 4%. Just as the Celestial Emperor's Divine Seal was about to degenerate into the Emperor's Jade Seal, it stopped. 10% of the origin was just enough to maintain the existence of the Celestial Emperor's Jade Seal. As the power of the Celestial Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal completely receded, Qin Feng opened his eyes and exhaled slightly, a smile flickering on his face. Although it was only a few moments, these few moments were comparable to thousands of years, or even tens of thousands of years. He stretched out a hand and a rainbow dragon chi circulated, brushing through space and time. Space and time were destroyed, and a chaotic color appeared above the dragon chi. Clear and turbid earth, water, wind, and fire formed heaven and earth. Connate yuan chi circulated. Vaguely, this rainbow divine power contained a supreme power that could interfere with the laws of the world. It could easily confer a title or sweep away a divine spirit. In terms of power, the Celestial Emperor's divine investiture art was clearly stronger than the Emperor's divine investiture art. In particular, that supreme power was like that of the Creator of heaven and earth. Looking at the Trayastrimsa Great Light Holy Tower of Creation avatar in his hand, a trace of excitement appeared in his eyes. Taoist creation's avatar contained many mysteries, and he was somewhat impatient to return to the sect to meditate in seclusion. It just so happened that he wanted to use this avatar to deduce what Taoist creation had been doing all this time. But before that, he had one more thing to do. His eyes flickered with a trace of coldness. Glancing at the remaining creation sect cultivators on the many side peaks of the creation mountain range, Qin Feng smiled coldly. A stream of light flashed. Qin Feng's figure instantly disappeared. In the middle of a rainbow ocean. Spirit Sea's origin ocean. In the endless rainbow light, one could vaguely see time, all living things, and even countless living beings, as well as the gods, playing out countless grudges, love, and hate. Qin Feng saw the 72 mysterious sects, the Dragon Palace of the Five Seas, and the Dragon Gate of the immemorial 10 Paths. Innate deity kings, deity emperors, and monarch-level experts were all in his sight. Even the many forbidden lands, such as the billions of Netherworld. In the depths of the Netherworld, the reincarnation earthly sovereign's postnatal Tao seed was about to mature. It was also absorbing strands of the Spirit Sea's origin, but this absorption was 100 times slower than Qin Feng's. That was the earthly sovereign's position. The earthly sovereign's position was second only to the heavenly monarch, and he could also enter the origin ocean. Other than that, there were many other positions in the world that were born in the origin ocean, including various deity positions. Vaguely, the origin ocean was no longer chaotic. It was gradually threaded by a huge, boundless, dragon-like purple gas that gradually turned into a giant net that enveloped everything in the world. This was the inescapable net that generations of Xingqian school's ancestors and countless sect experts worked tirelessly for. It used the billions of stars in the sky, the countless earth veins on the earth as the skeleton, the dream realm in the center as the dream net, and the mortal thoughts of all living beings as the raw material. Of course, the most central part was still the deduction ability of the creator space. Vaguely, there was a thunderous majesty that was nurtured within. That was the power of order. He gathered countless rights in the world, and among them, Qin Feng occupied the most supreme and also the largest share of right. That was the heavenly monarch's position. Qin Feng stepped into it and immediately, he felt the power of heaven and earth gathered around him. He was like the supreme heavenly monarch. Strands of dragon qi flowed out and in the illusion, even the origin ocean seemed to have stopped flowing. At this moment, the many experts in the Ling Hai realm felt the invisible pressure and instinctively raised their head. The many living beings also felt a suffocating pressure. In the many divine nations, the true gods, including the countless high-level gods and innate deity kings, all opened their eyes. Then, some of the innate deity kings, deity emperors, and especially the monarch-level experts were shocked. Vaguely, a supreme radiance burst out from somewhere unknown. In an instant, the chaos in the heaven and earth seemed to have disappeared completely. At the same time, a calm voice sounded. "I am Qin Feng, the first overgod of Ling Hai. From today onwards, the Ling Hai celestial system is established." Chapter 1480. Open the gates to all who are interested, come to Fei Yun Mountain. In 300 years, reorganize the mountains and rivers, re-establish the order of heaven and earth, and separate the gods and humans. The loud voice reverberated through billions of miles of the earth, countless small worlds, and divine nations. Boom! At this moment, in the 3,000 spirit regions and countless continents, the living beings and godly spirits were excited. It's finally begun. In the primordial Xingqian school, the many high-level innate godly spirits, innate deity kings, and deity emperors were overjoyed. They had been waiting for this moment for far too long. Primordial Lord God! Primordial Lord God! Primordial Lord God! Compared to the innate deity kings and deity emperors, the primordial Xingqian school's disciples in the earth marsh godly land were in a frenzy. Countless disciples raised their arms and cheered, venting the uncontrollable pride in their hearts. Even the sky could not stop their excitement. Not only the primordial Xingqian school's disciples, in the earth marsh godly land's new Tai by ancient capital, the Bai family's gods were also looking at the majestic figure in the void. They could barely contain their excitement. It seems like our Bai family is going to have an ancient god empress. In the hall, Bai Qingtian could not hide his joy. Beside him, the golden emperor Bai Qingyu did not argue with her brother for the first time. All the Bai family's godly spirits were looking at Bai Emperor and primordial Bai Yener, or rather, Princess Bai Yu. This is really, primordial Emperor Bai looked at Bai Yener, who looked exactly like Princess Whitefish, with a strange expression on his face. Before primordial Bai Emperor transcended, he had already entered the Bai Emperor continent. Although he did not have the opportunity to break through to the overgod level like the great monarch of Eastbaron, he was still at the peak of the monarch level. This time, in the spiritual sea realm, the Archean Bai Emperor also reappeared and took charge of the Bai clan. Of course, the rebirth of Princess Baiyu was also part of his plan. Of course, as a father, Bai Emperor undoubtedly hoped that Princess Baiyu and Ling of Gojoseon could continue their relationship. During the primordial age, the Bai family owed the Ling of Gojoseon too much. However, ever since the primeval emperor broke through, Bai Emperor knew that it was impossible. An overgod. The Bai family could not endure the torment of an overgod. Moreover, Bai Emperor's eyes flashed with a strange light. If Bai Yen-er could become the primeval master god's god-empress, even if she was just a god consort, the Bai family would still benefit immensely. However, his daughter was too lucky. There were countless geniuses in this world, but she had chosen Bai Yen-er. However, Bai Yen-er had a close relationship with that sovereign. All the Bai family deities were overjoyed. Princess Whitefish sat on the chair in silence, dumbfounded. In the earth-swamp divine region, there was a huge island above a sea. The spiritual chi here was flowing like a holy land. Countless disciples were flying around the island. Deep in the island, in the Qin Manor, the mansion master is finally going to establish a god system. The Qin family must not let down the overgod bloodline flowing in us. Qin Taizhan looked at the many Qin family disciples in the main hall sternly. Yes, we will not let the overgod down. Many of the Qin clan's disciples shouted at the top of their lungs. In the main hall, many guest deities looked at the Qin family disciples with envy. Although these people were not direct descendants of the overgod and were collateral relatives, they were still protected by the overgod's bloodline. The so-called bloodline protection meant that the closer one's bloodline was to Qin Feng, the greater the benefits they would receive. For example, in an ordinary family, if a disciple could become a deity, the entire family's direct descendants and collateral relatives would receive bloodline protection. In a short time, it would become a god-fiend family. With Qin Feng as the overgod, the Qin family disciples would receive even greater benefit. As for those who were close to Qin Feng, most of them instantly turned into innate deity kings when Qin Feng gained control of the Tao, such as Qin Taizhan and Qin Tieyu on the stage. These two were originally just woodchoppers and cleaners in the Qin family. However, after the Qin family master's breakthrough, the two of them were like sitting on a rocket. First, their bloodline was remolded and they turned into innate deity kings. Then, in just a few months, they became true deity kings. This speed made many ancient experts who had cultivated for a few eras feel ashamed. However, this was also the most unique thing about this world's cultivation technique. Other than the few innate deity kings born within 3 generations, the rest of the Qin family disciples were mostly high-level or mid-level innate deity kings. What was worth mentioning was that Qin Qinshan and Qin Feng, who had their cultivation sealed by the Qin family, also recovered their cultivation through the bloodline's reverse nurturing. They even cultivated the high-level innate deity kings. This pair of grandfather and grandson once bullied Qin Feng's family, exchanging Qin Feng's marriage contract, and even wanted to kill Qin Feng for no reason. Now they were the sinners of the Qin family. Although they didn't kill the two of them, they sealed their cultivation and became the bad example of the Qin family. On the other side of the palace, the Yu family's people were overjoyed when they heard the rumbling voice coming from the void. Now, Yu Yao of the Yu family was the Qin family's internal affairs supervisor, helping the overgod with many internal affairs. Moreover, she was also a concubine. With such benefits, the Yu family could enjoy them endlessly. However, many of them were more furious and regretful. Back then, if it wasn't for Qin Qingshan, the Yu family wouldn't have been misled, and Yu Yao might have become the overgod's deity queen. Instead, she was now an anonymous concubine who didn't even have the title of deity concubine. Many Yu family experts gritted their teeth in anger. Celestial system? In an ancient ruin, 10,000 stars dotted the sky and endless starlight gathered. A star monarch opened his eyes amidst the starlight. He wore the sun, moon, and star monarch robe and a star monarch crown on his head. If the disciples and elders of the Xingqian school of the past were here, they would definitely recognize this innate star god. This was none other than the former headmaster, the Star Venerable. Ever since the crepe myrtle star monarch supported the Xingqian school, the Star Venerable had disappeared without a trace. It was hard to imagine that he had silently become an imperial emperor. The world has changed. I never thought that my Xingqian school would have such a day. Well, it's time for me to go out for a walk. He glanced at the huge ancient ruins and waved his sleeves. The entire ancient ruins turned into a huge starlight and entered his body. In an instant there was a flash of light and his figure disappeared on the spot. I have no choice but to go back. At this time, in the depths of an ancient forbidden land filled with poisonous gas, a gray-robed young expert's face flashed with helplessness. If it weren't for the fact that he had no choice, Qian Kai really didn't want to go back and submit to that old enemy. But now, he had no choice but to go back. The benefits of the celestial system were too great. He couldn't give it up and watch his former schoolmates divide this huge cake. Chapter 1481. Qian Kai looked around. This was the Poison God Canyon. It was rumored that it was a place of absolute poison in the world. All kinds of highly poisonous things in the world could be found here. At the same time, all kinds of corresponding antidotes and spiritual medicines were also available here. This forbidden area was like the food path of the 2D abyss. Although it was slightly inferior to the food path of the 2D abyss, as the spirit sea leveled up, the essence of this place also increased greatly. It was like a divine kingdom of 1,000 gods. After refining this place, Qian Kai's strength had already caught up to some ancient peerless experts. A peak innate deity king aura emanated from his body, as if he was the venomous deity king that walked the heaven and earth. He was only half a step away from becoming a deity emperor and becoming a deity emperor that ruled over countless gods. With a flash of flowing light, he disappeared from the Poison God Canyon and headed straight for the Soaring Cloud Mountain in the Earth Marsh Divine region. In the Imperial Shi sect, the cultivators of the Imperial Shi sect immediately gathered in the 8 trigrams Tao-seeking palace after the deafening voice that reverberated throughout the divine land of great change. Sect Master, what should we do now? In the Great Hall, the many god kings and god emperors of the Emperor Shi sect had ugly expressions on their faces. Everyone looked at the Fortune Emperor, the Inferno Emperor, and the Profound Sky Emperor who were still sitting on the main seats. The 3 great emperors wore solemn expressions. With that Lord God establishing the god system, it probably wouldn't be long before he would be able to sweep through the Linghai continent and turn it into the god system's private backyard. Naturally, these forces would not have a good ending. Even if he could survive, he would have to depend on others for his survival. Emperors, did the Master God issue any divine decree to take us out of the Spirit Sea? A God King stood up. Many God Kings stared at the 3 imperial emperors. The Emperor Shi sect had always been one of the top 10 divine sects in the Spirit Sea continent. Many cultivators had long been used to being bossed around. How could they bow their heads in submission? Even more people were hopeful that the master deity of Emperor Shi's divine branch could take them away. Many people had already made their preparations, sweeping up their collections of tens of millions of years, only waiting to leave. The 3 emperor-level experts looked at the expectant gazes of the gods and smiled bitterly. It was not that they had not seen the fate of the creation sect's experts. How could that sovereign possibly allow them to leave? Not to mention the gods, even the 3 of them would not be able to escape. After the Spirit Sea continent leveled up, it was no longer a place where one could come and go as they pleased. Otherwise, even sovereigns could die from the backlash of the heavens and earth. The current situation of Emperor Shi's sect was extremely awkward. Since they could not contact Emperor Shi's divine branch, they were still conflicted and hesitant to join a new divine branch. After all, betraying Emperor Shi's divine branch might have offended Emperor Shi's divine branch. In the war god shrine of the Wind Lake Divine Region, when the loud voice arrived, the war god sect's current headmaster opened his eyes at the same time. Traces of blazing battle intent flickered. An over god. The supreme technique of the battle god sect, the battle god technique, had an extremely terrifying characteristic. The more one fought, the stronger one would become. However, the blazing battle intent in the battle god sect's sect master's eyes quickly vanished. An ordinary postnatal holy god who had just broken through could attempt to challenge him. However, an innate holy god like Primordial Lord, who was clearly much stronger than an ordinary innate holy god, was definitely not someone one could casually challenge. Four war god elders. He stood up, his voice heavy. 4 streams of light flashed and flew in from outside the mountain. In an instant, they transformed into 4 invincible war gods in robes of different colors. Prepare the gifts to visit the Primordial Lord. Sect Master, we? The 4 war god elders frowned slightly. They were a little hesitant. What are you thinking? We don't have any grudges with the Primordial Lord. Moreover, the Primordial Lord has offended so many overgods. He should need some allies. The battle god sect master looked wise. Among the 4 war god elders, one of the earth-type war god elders could not help but ask, but should we report this to the overgods? No need. I can make the decision. The battle god sect master waved his sleeve. His expression was extremely domineering and confident. Hearing this, the 4 war god elders nodded and hurriedly went to prepare. At this moment, not only the various major sects, but also the 800 unorthodox groups, many ancient families, and ancient races heard the loud voice and reacted immediately. The entire spirit sea void, trillions of voids, and countless small worlds surged violently. Many powerhouses had different reactions. Some were eager, some were disdainful, some were watching, some were hostile, and some were secretly making moves. In general, the appearance of the god system and the overgod's supreme power shook the world. There were also those who were sensitive. How could they go to the Earth Marsh state and become a disciple of the god system? They would be respected as ancestors and control the gods of a place. They would be free and unfettered with a clear status. In an instant, the entire god system was rapidly expanding. The great change of the world was about to happen. At this moment, in the depths of the Spirit Sea origin world, a huge will merged into the origin sea like a fish in water. Vaguely, a huge demon god's true body was gathering. If there were ancient powerhouses here, they would definitely be able to tell that this huge demon god's true body was very similar to the legendary Spirit Sea creator, Pan Yuan. Its body was hidden in the origin sea, absorbing the origin sea to grow. Even Qin Feng, as the celestial emperor, could not detect its existence. However, during the primordial era, when the creation god created the world, he had already died from exhaustion. How could he be reborn? Sensing the huge changes in the world, the demon god's cold and obscure eyes glanced in the direction of the Earth Marsh state. He smiled coldly and closed his eyes, absorbing the origin sea with all his might. His illusory body became more and more solid. At the same time, a great Tao sprouted, as if it was born from the origin sea with every breath he took. He was the innate ruler of this new innate great Tao. This great Tao was not an innate creation, nor was it the innate universe great Tao. This was the third innate great Tao born in the spirit sea void. This innate great Tao was born without any movement. The gods did not notice it. Even the celestial emperors and overgods were unable to detect or comprehend it. Earth Marsh State, Flying Cloud Mountain, deep in the Chaos Xingqian School. In the overgod space, standing above the world origin force in the center of the overgod space, he could vaguely see a purple great Tao that led straight to the origin sea void. A vast and majestic aura rushed towards him. Through the crystal ball in the overgod space, looking at the origin sea void, it was as if he was there himself. It was indescribably majestic. Looking at the origin sea void, Qin Feng frowned. His expression was heavy, and his mind was restless. For some reason, his Tao heart seemed to be unusually oppressed these days. It was like the dark clouds before a storm. However, he had checked the origin sea void hundreds of times, but he found nothing every time. Chapter 1482. However, Qin Feng felt a deep sense of uneasiness in his heart. He was even anxious. He stared into the depths of the origin ocean. Something was wrong. There must be something wrong. However, every time he felt a hint of anxiety or uneasiness, Qin Feng would use his supreme calmness to kill it completely. His eyes remained cold and indifferent. The Creator's space was calculating at full power. He raised a hand and a pure, holy light appeared on his palm. It was crystal clear, as if it was formed by endless light. It was a small pagoda formed by light. There were a total of 33 levels, and each level seemed to have an extraordinary mystery. Countless runes and incantations were born and destroyed within. The great light holy creation tower of Trayastrimsa heavens. A pure young avatar. In Qin Feng's eyes, it was as if the creation great Tao had descended, but it was different from the portion of creation great Tao that he controlled. There were millions of types of time, but all of them paled in comparison to the mystery of the great Tao manifested directly. Qin Feng knew very well that this was not the true power of Taoist creation's avatar. It was just a projection, but even so, he could use it to get a glimpse of the truth. Primeval Master God, I advise you to calm down. I know you've just advanced to rank 16 innate sacred God, and your strength is extraordinary, far surpassing that of ordinary innate sacred gods. I can't help but admire you for that. However, are you really prepared to completely offend a second-step Master God? A cold face appeared above the great light holy creation tower of Trayastrimsa heavens. A second-step Master God. Qin Feng was silent for a moment. A rank 17 Chaos Master God was a second-step Master God. No one knew better than Qin Feng how powerful a second-step Master God was. If a rank 16 Sacred God was known as a world-class expert of the great thousand worlds, everyone below the Sacred God was an ant. A second-step Master God was a Chaos Master God who had merged with an inverse innate Tao seed. Across the countless greater thousand worlds, they were peerless existences whose names shook the heavens and earth. However, Qin Feng said after a moment, "Haven't I already offended you?" With that, Qin Feng ignored the extremely ugly expression on Taoist creation's avatar and casually tossed it into the center of the light sphere. The center of the ball of light was like a vast white ocean. The Trayastrimsa heavens holy tower of good fortune fell into it, and all sorts of data were rapidly deduced by the Master God space. Innate 9 orifices mind condensation technique, extreme refinement technique, great radiance limitless physique, 33 heavens Buddha sacred pagoda sutra, primal chaos creation technique, dark space creation technique. All sorts of secret techniques were listed on the 33 heavens great radiance fortune pagoda. This included the places where the holy tower of good fortune of the 33 heavens great radiance holy tower of good fortune was similar to a certain cultivation method. Layer by layer, they appeared on the invisible screen of the changing light sphere. Within it, the foundation of the Creator's space was revealed. Qin Feng had been through several greater kiliacosms, and even 3 void great cosmoses. He had collected countless cultivation techniques, and those cultivation techniques could be said to be painstakingly created by the experts of various heavens. They could be said to be the essence of a world. With so many cultivation techniques in reserve, he could use them as the basis for his calculations. The holy tower of good fortune of the 33 heavens, holy tower of good fortune, was analyzed within a few days. At this point, this projection of the Dharma body to him, there were no secrets at all. Qin Feng's eyes flashed with a strange light. They both controlled the innate great Tao of good fortune, but the power of the great Tao of good fortune that they comprehended was actually different. If the great Tao of good fortune that he controlled was inclined towards change, and had a domineering power that could change heaven and earth, then the great Tao of good fortune that he controlled was inclined towards change. The great Tao of good fortune that Taoist good fortune controlled was inclined towards evolution. The evolution of nature, the creation of chaos, the evolution of yin and yang, and the birth of three: earth, water, wind, and fire. One gave birth to two, two gave birth to three, and three gave birth to all things. There's also the mystery of the Dharma seals. Qin Feng's eyes flashed with a strange light. He was born unorthodox and did not understand the mystery of the Dharma body. Previously, the Dharma body had been in the process of being nurtured and was at the stage of exploration. Now, it gradually formed a complete influence. The Dharma body was divided into the innate realm, pure yang realm, heavenly king realm, and immortal realm. Generally speaking, to be able to nurture an illusory innate light of heaven and earth in the lotus of the great Tao was considered to have formed a Dharma body and stepped into the innate stage. The innate stage could also be called the innate illusory stage. This was because the light of heaven and earth was illusory. The light of heaven and earth could evolve and transform into a Dharma body. It could take the form of a magic treasure, a human figure, or other mysterious objects. Next was the pure yang stage. When the three flowers of the great Tao nurtured a ray of innate mystic Tao light, it was called the pure yang stage because it was perfect and flawless like the 9 suns in the sky. A pure yang stage Dharma body was above the innate stage and was much more powerful and mysterious than an ordinary illusory stage Dharma body. The innate mystic Tao light had many incredible abilities. An ordinary illusory stage Dharma body would not have much resistance in front of a pure yang stage Dharma body. Next was the heavenly king stage Dharma body. To be able to nurture a ray of innate three-colored chaotic light, one could nurture a heavenly king stage Dharma body. A heavenly king stage Dharma body was too powerful. Since ancient times, even in the Chaos Sea, it was rumored that only a few people had condensed a heavenly king stage Dharma body. They were as rare as phoenix feathers and qilin horns. It was said that among the gods born in the Spirit Sea, only 2 had cultivated a heavenly king stage Dharma body. One was the primordial Chaos Taoist, and the other was rumored to be the ancient Sui sovereign. Some said it was the great emperor of the eastern wilderness. As for who it was, no one could say for sure. There were too few innate saint gods who could nurture the innate three-colored chaotic light. Moreover, it was common knowledge that the quality of a Dharma body would change after it was nurtured. At most, it would change its power. The 4th time was the immortal stage. If one could nurture the innate primordial essence light, there was a chance to nurture an immortal stage Dharma body. An immortal stage Dharma body had never been seen before. It was just that in the legends, a level 19 Supreme Sovereign's Dharma body was nurtured at the immortal stage. As for whether it was true or not, it was hard to know. As for how to condense a Dharma body, Qin Feng also learned a part of it through the Trayastrimsa Great Light Creation Holy Tower. It had to do with one's cultivation, foundation, and the secret technique that one cultivated. The 3 flowers above Qin Feng's head were vaguely chaotic and misty. Endless brilliance flowed, and a stream of light absorbed the foundation of the great Tao. Endless luck was slowly being nurtured, and there was a huge phenomenon. Qin Feng vaguely knew that from this phenomenon, even if he didn't have the relevant secret technique, the Dharma body's spiritual light that he nurtured was very likely to be above the innate Xian Dao light. His foundation was too strong. especially after witnessing the great wilderness universe's advancement and participating in the spirit sea's advancement. The accumulation of such fortuitous encounters far surpassed that of ordinary innate saint gods. However, if he were to nurture it like this, his lifespan would naturally stop at the innate Xian Dao light. The innate Xian Dao light was considered extremely superior among many innate saint gods. But how could Qin Feng be willing to accept that? Chapter 1483. Qin Feng was not in a hurry to nurture his avatar. Right now, the most pressing issue was the crisis before their eyes. Within the chief god space, the white-robed Qin Feng had a gloomy expression on his face. In addition to the mysteries of the avatar, Qin Feng was also slowly discovering Taoist creation's plans. Qin Feng's eyes flickered with a gloomy glint. Shenwu continent. Taoist creation's face was as gloomy as still water. After a long silence, the limestone god could not help but ask, "Your Majesty, now that your avatar has been captured by the primeval, I'm afraid that our secret will be exposed. Aren't you worried at all?" On the other side, the serene jade god also looked at Taoist creation. In reality, this matter had been carried out by Taoist creation, and the two had only scratched the surface. They had long been curious. The two wanted to know what method Taoist creation had used to transform the Spirit Sea continent. On the main seat, Taoist creation had his eyes closed, but he was inexplicably annoyed. The revelation of the Avatar's secret had caught him off guard. However, there was nothing he could do in the short term. He didn't want to bother with the two acquired holy deities, but when he thought about how he still needed to borrow their strength to deal with the primeval Master God, a strange look flashed across his eyes, and he said after a while, "Do you two know Primeval Sovereign?" Primeval Sovereign? The limestone god and serene jade god looked at each other, and their bodies trembled slightly. Soon after, a cold breath came from the top of their heads. "Are you talking about the Spirit Sea Creator?" The limestone god's face twitched. Taoist creation glanced indifferently at the limestone sovereign and nodded. "That's right." The limestone god and serene jade god felt their mouths go dry, and their limbs turn cold. In the world, all living things became spirits, and spirits became God. There were several types of true gods, such as the origin demon god, the ultimate demon god, the guardian demon god, the chaos demon god, the creator demon god, and so on. Every type of demon god was different in terms of strength and potential. For example, the fiend celestial guardians were extremely powerful in their own world. However, it was difficult for living beings to leave their world unless it was under extremely special circumstances. There was also the ultimate demon god. This type of demon god had become a god during the Great Calamity. Typically, only when the heavens and earth were destroyed and all living things withered would they be able to borrow the true intent of destruction to break through and become a god. Another example would be the Order True Gods and the Chaos Demon God. Lawful true gods were true gods who were born to follow the order of heaven and earth. They were born to maintain order. The Chaos Demon God could only be proven in the chaos, calamity, and great calamity of the world. As for the Origin Demon Gods, they could only advance to Origin Demon Gods by comprehending the mystics of the origin. In short, they were all high-level demon gods with great innate potential. Each had their own strengths and weaknesses. Even though they were all high-level innate gods, there were still differences in the way they achieved their innate god. However, the god of creation was definitely one of the most perverted gods. There were only two ways to become a creation demon god. One was to be nurtured by the endless chaos and be an existence that created the world. The second method was to completely refine the world one was born in. Creator fiend gods were extremely rare. Especially the second type. This type was only born in the later stages of the Golden Era. However, if it was just an ordinary creation demon god, it would not alarm the limestone master god, and the serene jade master god. Although they were creation demon gods, they were still existences below the experts of the vast thousand domains. There was still a difference in their realms. Everyone below the master god level was an ant. However, Panyuan was different. In fact, that creation demon god called Panyuan was just too famous in this generation. Generally, when a perfected emperor-level expert broke through to level 16, they would choose avoid Great Cosmos and slowly attempt Tao unification or sacrifice Great Tao laws to break through the final threshold. However, these were the choices of ordinary fiend gods. Actually, there was another way for creation demon gods to prove their Tao. That was the most violent method. It was also a legendary method that had always been spread above the Chaos Sea. Tao unification in the chaos. Many level 16 saint gods knew that apart from the innate great Tao that existed in the void of the 33 skies, the innate great Tao also existed everywhere in the chaos void. In theory, there was also the possibility of Tao unification. However, that was only in theory. Although the innate great Tao was everywhere in the chaos void, it was extremely chaotic, modeled, vast, and abnormally powerful. It was impossible to Tao unification. If any expert attempted to Tao unification in the chaos void, they would not even be able to complete the first step of intercepting the great Tao, let alone endure the backlash of the great Tao that existed everywhere in the chaos void. However, there were also some crazy existences who believed that Tao unification in the chaos void was also possible. In particular, these were the most popular creation demon gods in the legends. They believed that it was possible to open up a void great cosmos in the endless chaos void to carry and intercept the innate great Tao. As long as one took the first step to Tao unification, they would become an innate saint god, the strongest innate saint god. In theory, this was not wrong. However, there were very few who dared to try it. Creation god Panyuan was one of these creation demon gods who dared to try it. In the past, that person was a lawless madman. He had even taken the initiative to attack a few innate saint gods and survived. Your Majesty creation, you mean to say? Some terrifying guesses flashed in his mind. Suppressing the uneasiness in his heart, the limestone master god could not help but look at Taoist creation. On the tall throne in the center, Taoist creation's long sleeves fell to his knees. His eyes were closed, and after a while, he slowly opened them. You probably only know that I am the second Taoist to be born in the Spirit Sea, but you do not know my true identity. He ignored the astonishment on the limestone master god and serene jade master god's faces. He continued. In the past, Panyuan died when he opened the sky. His divine body separated and turned into the sun, moon, galaxy, mountains, and spirit veins. Nourished by his divine body, the entire spirit sea stabilized and gradually grew to its current foundation. Many know that his primordial spirit split into 5 and turned into a great expert, but as for what those 5 primordial spirits turned into, many do not know. The serene jade master god's expression changed slightly as he spoke. I heard that one of the primordial spirits combined with a strand of primordial chaos Yuan Qi and took form. His title was Primordial Chaos Taoist. Taoist creation glanced at the serene jade master god and smiled faintly. That's right, Primordial Chaos Taoist is indeed one of the 5 primordial spirits, and the first to take form. Otherwise, he would not be qualified to call himself the teacher of all spirits. At the mention of primordial chaos, a cold glint flashed in Taoist creation's eyes. I heard that Taoist Dinghai was formed from a primordial spirit combined with a primordial chaos spirit vein. The limestone master god glanced at Taoist creation. And Your Majesty, it is said that you were born from a primordial spirit combined with a primordial chaos spirit vein. Chapter 1484. Taoist creation's expression was indifferent as he took a deep look at the limestone master god. He did not deny it. Instead, he continued. Pam Yuan's primordial spirit was split into 5 parts. Many people think that Pam Yuan has fallen, and to a certain extent, that is indeed the case. However, if I want to revive it, it won't be too difficult. You revived Pam Yuan? The brows of the limestone master god and the serene jade master god twitched violently. Not only did I revive Pam Yuan, but I also sent his remnant spirit back to the origin source ocean of the spirit sea realm. Taoist creation smiled coldly. What? The limestone master god and the serene jade master god's expressions changed drastically. Their faces were filled with shock. Things were getting out of hand. If that was the case, they were not afraid that the primeval master god would know the whole story. Even if he did, there was nothing he could do. Qin Feng was indeed unable to do anything. Pam Yuan was a fiend god of creation, and the fiend god of this void great cosmos at that. Although he had fallen, he had made great contributions to heaven and earth. Now that Pam Yuan had returned, he was protected by most of the origin source of heaven and earth. Such an existence was almost destined to be a Tao ancestor, and was destined to be impossible to kill. Moreover, Pam Yuan had already entered the origin source ocean and was protected by it. Unless Qin Feng decided to completely destroy the Spirit Sea Void or risk the Spirit Sea Void's downgrade, he would have to cut off the part of the origin source ocean where Pam Yuan was. However, Qin Feng could not do that. He had already regarded the Spirit Sea as his personal backyard. If the Spirit Sea was downgraded, it would be of no value to him. Taoist creation's move was too ruthless. He was taking drastic measures. In the Master God space, Qin Feng, who was dressed in white, had a chilling intent that could freeze heaven and earth flickering on his face. Clearly, Taoist creation's intention was very clear. He wanted Pam Yuan to return and even break through to the Tao integration realm in one go. Pam Yuan was a figure who had existed since the creation of heaven and earth. His foundation was so deep that it far surpassed that of some Taoists. Even primordial chaos Taoist, who was known as the teacher of all spirits and gods, paled in comparison. Coupled with his identity as a fiend god of creation, his chances of breaking through to the Tao integration realm were much higher than ordinary people. Qin Feng could not kill him. Not killing him wasn't an option. If Pam Yuan successfully broke through one day, he would definitely fight with Qin Feng for the heavenly authority of the Spirit Sea continent. At that time, Taoist creation and the other sovereigns would have a chance. What a vicious plan! Qin Feng's face darkened. His gaze pierced through countless spaces and landed on the 7-colored origin sea. His powerful primordial spirit swept across the boundless origin sea. A cold light flashed in Xiao Chen's eyes. If not for the protection of the source ocean, he would have killed Pam Yuan. Even though Pam Yuan was the god of creation and was protected by the providence of heaven and earth, if he killed this person, an immeasurable amount of evil energy would descend. His gaze landed on the depths of the chief god space, where the Trayastrimsa Heaven's holy tower of good fortune had already been completely analyzed. Bang! The gigantic Trayastrimsa Great Light Holy Tower of Good Fortune collapsed inch by inch, turning into fine powder that became nourishment for the Master God's space. At this time, in the center of the Master God space, outside the crystal-like Master God Palace, countless amounts of prenatal chaos origin energy filled the air. As the 33 Heavens Great Light Holy Good Fortune Tower was swallowed up, it surged out. The enormous Master God space was abnormally vast. Vaguely, the first batch of prenatal divine spirits had already been born. Before long, they would be born and become another source of divine bloodlines under Qin Feng's command. In the first era of the Master God space, there were 48,000 deity thrones born in the first batch, similar to the Spirit Sea continent. However, these 48,000 deity thrones were still insufficient compared to the tens of millions of prenatal divine spirits and prenatal divine spirit. Qin Feng's feet gradually left the ground and floated up. As his anger rose, it was as if countless thunderstorms were roaring in the void. Many lightning elemental prenatal divine spirits were vaguely born in the thunderclouds, roaring furiously in response to his anger. At the center of the primal chaos continent, beside the divine spring, the pink-clothed witch looked indifferently at Qin Feng, whose anger was so dark that it was almost tangible. An interested smile flashed across her beautiful face. Qin Feng, beg me. Who knows, I might be able to help you if I'm in a good mood. Her voice was clear, and a moment later, it fell into Qin Feng's ears. Qin Feng looked coldly at the pink-clothed witch. Do you really think that a mere creation demon god who has yet to attain Tao can ruin my plan? Am I not? The pink-clothed witch was not suppressed by the terrifying pressure. This was extremely terrifying. She could actually ignore the pressure of a peak 16th level prenatal divine spirit. She shrugged her shoulders. I've encountered such a situation before. Once the creation primordial spirits are resurrected, they will be the masters of the void great universe. She smiled coldly. Don't think that just because you're the celestial emperor, you can truly rule over all living beings and deities. As the Genesis primordial spirits, they are the most legitimate successors of heaven and earth. Once they attain Tao, you can only be killed or sealed apart from being banished. Even if you're now a peak 16th level prenatal divine spirit. She knew a lot, and it was a little beyond imagination. Qin Feng was not surprised. Before reaching the peak of the emperor level, he might have had some doubts, but after breaking through to the Tao integration stage, he knew that this which was definitely not the existence he had imagined. She was in creation primordial spirit, and in creation primordial spirit from another world. However, the witch's state was a little strange. Qin Feng just snorted coldly and immediately turned around to look at the origin sea hidden in the depths of the endless space-time. Did these people really think that he could not defeat a mere creation primordial spirit who had yet to attain Tao? So what if she was destined to attain Tao? Glancing at the leisurely witch who had occupied his divine spring, Qin Feng's lips curled into a crooked smile. His figure flashed and appeared in the depths of the Spirit Sea's origin void. Above the origin sea, the seven-colored divine light surged and fell into it. Qin Feng vaguely felt a huge pressure. There was also a hidden malice that was faintly locked onto him. It was quite unscrupulous. Obviously, that was the creation primordial spirit hiding in the dark. Qin Feng's lips curled into a cold smile. Did this creation primordial spirit really think that he could not do anything to him? His gaze fell on the surroundings, and when he raised his head to take a glance, he saw the third creation great Tao. It was the great Tao of connate force. He had not noticed it before, but now that he had obtained Taoist creator's memories and understood the truth, how could this new creation great Tao of connate force hide from him? Qin Feng said two words. Seal. A layer of supreme brilliance vaguely emerged from his body. This was a magnificent brilliance that transcended everything, and it seemed to illuminate the origin sea space. Qin Feng raised a hand, and an invisible force still shrouded the myriad worlds. At the same time, it seeped into the 800 acquired great Taos, and even the remaining 2 creation great Taos. The grand and mighty light enveloped them, slowly sealing and concealing them. Chapter 1485. He actually sealed all the great Taos. What a powerful divine power! In the chief god space, the demonic woman frowned and looked at Qin Feng solemnly. Sealing all the great Taos of the 33 heavens was quite difficult even for an ordinary second-step innate sacred god. Qin Feng's strength was really beyond her imagination. She was born with a noble status and outstanding talent. She had seen countless gods before the ancient times, but she had never seen someone as talented as Qin Feng. His strength was probably at the top of the great thousand realms and the 16th level innate sacred god. But immediately she sneered again. Qin Feng, although you can seal all the great Daos and temporarily prevent Pan Yuan's resurrection and unification, how long can you stop it for? 1,000 years or 3,000 years? In the end, it's still a temporary solution. 3,000 years was just a snap of a finger for an ordinary innate sacred god. It was even more so for a 16th level innate sacred god. It was like drinking poison to quench thirst. Break. Sensing Qin Feng's movement, the Genesis primordial spirit hidden in the origin sea revealed a ferocious glint as it suddenly transformed into a 10,000-meter tall demon god. With a huge axe in its hand, it hacked toward Qin Feng. It was as if endless chaos was being split by the axe light. It was soul-stirring. You can't hold it in anymore? Not only was Qin Feng not surprised, but the corners of his mouth curled up into a sneer. His sleeves fluttered and he grabbed from afar. 3 flowers appeared behind his head, and a divine light burst out from the first of them, which was a 9th-grade gray lotus flower that had already condensed. Super divine technique, good fortune manipulation. Qi. The vast axe light was annihilated in an instant, and the divine light swept out and hit the huge demon god that the Genesis origin spirit had manifested, turning it into pure origin power in an instant. Without any resistance, the Genesis origin spirit's entire body was refined in an instant amidst a roar. But Qin Feng could feel that the Genesis origin spirit was not dead. The Genesis origin spirit had already refined a part of the spirit sea origin. Unless he could completely refine the spirit sea origin, it would not be easy to kill him in the spirit sea void. This kind of existence was similar to the heavenly Tao sage in the great desolate world. Qin Feng glanced at the origin sea a few times and quickly stopped doing this useless work. Although he didn't kill the Genesis primordial spirit in one blow, the Genesis primordial spirit was severely injured after being completely refined by his creation mediation great magical power. It would be difficult for it to recover in a short period of time. At the very least, he would not be able to stir up trouble for the next 3,000 years. Qin Feng's expression was gloomy. Although 3,000 years was not a long time, it gave him some time to relax. In a flash, he appeared in the Lord's space. At the moment, the most important thing for him was to nurture the universe book and deduce a cultivation method that corresponded to a second-step Lord and his second connate great Tao. He actually sealed the great Tao of the heavens. In the main hall of the Shenwu continent, the limestone overgod and the serene jade overgod were able to sense the formless changes through some of the reincarnated overgods who were hiding on the Linghai continent. Your Majesty, the primeval Lord of Heaven, has sealed the great Tao of the heavens. I'm afraid the Genesis primordial spirit won't be able to do anything in a short time. The limestone sovereign looked at Taoist creation. On the other side, the serene jade overgod's expression flickered. With the great Tao of the heavens sealed, although it was not impossible to prove one's Tao, the Tao unification would become even more difficult. Without a few thousand years, the Genesis primordial spirit would not be able to Tao unification and break through to rank 16. During these few thousand years, new problems would arise. Although he was unwilling, the serene jade overgod had to admit that the primeval overgod was more difficult to deal with than he had imagined. On the central throne, Taoist creation looked indifferent, as if the primeval overgod's great Tao of the heavens had not shaken him in the slightest. Your Majesty creation, are we just going to wait here for 1,000 years? The limestone overgod could not bear it any longer. He stood up and looked at Taoist creation with a bright gaze. To the limestone overgod, even allowing the primeval overgod to live for another day was a huge threat. He could not afford to wait. On the central throne, Taoist creation glanced at the limestone over-god and the serene jade over-god. Everyone, please be patient. Today, I shall introduce a majesty to the two of you. With that, he paid no attention to the two over-gods, whose expressions had changed. A gray streak of light flew in from outside the hall, and in an instant, a majestic, arrogant figure wearing a dragon robe emerged from the golden light. At the same time, an extremely dense and majestic aura rushed over and filled the entire main hall, like the long river of time that swept through the heavens. This aura was so powerful that the limestone over-god and the serene jade over-god were almost drowned by it. The innate saint god's great Tao spirit light around them was like a candle flame in the wind, on the verge of collapse. Moments later, the gray light disappeared. The protective spirit light around the limestone over-god and the serene jade over-god were extremely weak, like fireflies that were about to be extinguished. Their bodies were illusory and looked as if they would be destroyed at any moment. The two saint gods' eyes were filled with horror as if they had seen something extremely terrifying. The gray light retracted and a silent, formless gray figure walked out. It was as if he stood in the passage of time and his form could not be seen clearly. Your Majesty Torch Dragon. Seeing the appearance of this existence, Taoist creation walked down from his throne, looking unusually cautious. Your Majesty creation, the two allies you mentioned are not as strong as you imagined. The gray figure's voice was faint and carried a hoarse coldness. Like the merciless passage of time, it sent chills down one's spine. The limestone over-god and the serene jade over-god could clearly sense the contempt and disdain in the innate saint god's tone. They were furious, but as soon as they thought of this unfamiliar saint god, the two saint gods forcefully restrained their rage. Their eyes flickered with wariness. The innate saint god of the innate universe great Tao. His battle prowess was not something the two saint gods could match. Moreover, this was an innate saint god that had cultivated for more than 1,000,000 years. Two pieces of trash and you don't even dare to attack. Taoist creation, you really disappoint me. The existence with gray eyes had been staring at the two saint gods. When he heard the mockery, he completely lost interest. The limestone over-god and the serene jade over-god's expressions were gloomy, and they did not say a word. Alright, Taoist creation, I've seen it just now. The innate universe great Tao has indeed been born in the spirit sea. I'll enter it and take care of that newly ascended brat for you. I hope you and your two pieces of trash will drag me down. As soon as he finished speaking, the gray light flashed and disappeared into the distance. Taoist creation's expression did not change when he saw the innate saint god called Torch Dragon being so rude. However, the limestone over-god and the serene jade over-god could no longer bear it. Your Majesty creation, who is this person? Why is he so arrogant? Chapter 1486. The limestone god and serene jade god's faces were ashen, as if they wanted to eat someone alive. Their lungs were about to explode from anger. Ever since they had become Hotian holy gods, they had never been looked down upon like this. It was just that in the 33 upper realms of the primal chaos, they had never heard of anyone possessing the laws of the innate time-light great Tao. Torch Dragon, you'd best not provoke him. Taoist creation glanced at the limestone god and serene jade god. Taoist creation already regarded these two Hotian holy gods as dead people. These two were destined to become cannon fodder. However, they were still high-level cannon fodder, so he was not stingy with giving them some respect. You don't have to worry about him. His goal is the innate universe great Tao. As long as you don't provoke him, he won't make things difficult for you out of respect for me. The limestone god and serene jade god were furious upon hearing this. This Taoist creation was clearly in cahoots with the Torch Dragon god. Your Majesty creation, Aren't you afraid that the torch dragon will take over once he merges with the innate universe great Tao? The limestone god was unwilling to accept this. Of course, it was also possible that he was trying to sow discord. This was not impossible. Any overgod, even a third-step overgod, would be tempted by the upper realm of the 33 upper realms. You don't have to worry about this matter. Since I invited him here, I naturally have a way to make him obediently hand over the spirit sea. After saying that, Taoist creation glanced at the two. All right, you two should return and make preparations. Taoist creation's figure flashed, and he disappeared from where he stood. When the limestone and serene jade sovereigns saw this, they looked at each other and sighed. They then decided to leave Shenwu continent as well. In the endless primal chaos, a storm lingered. In an incomparably hidden chaotic region, two streaks of light appeared in the center of the chaotic region, above a large chaotic boulder that was condensed from chaotic energy. Do you believe his words? Two figures landed on the ground, and one of them emitted a majestic spiritual light as he asked with a gloomy expression. These two were none other than the limestone god and serene jade god, who had just left Shenwu continent. The two had been dissatisfied, but because of Taoist creation, they could only suppress their dissatisfaction. The him they were referring to was naturally Taoist creation. However, the two of them did not address each other directly. The might of a second step lord was astounding. Once someone was addressed by their honorific title directly, it was highly likely that that person would be alerted. I'm afraid he already has other plans in mind. Limestone, we're really asking a tiger for its skin this time. The tranquil jade overgod laughed bitterly in his heart. Even if we are asking a tiger for its skin, we must not let Yuanshi go. Otherwise, once he is free, do you think he will let us go? The limestone sovereign had a vicious look on his face. He had long since hated Qin Feng to the bone. It wasn't just because Qin Feng had stolen information regarding a portion of the planes under his control, the Greater Thousand Realms. More importantly, it stemmed from his fear of the primeval Master God. After all, he had almost killed the primeval Master God back then. Would the primeval Lord God let him go after his breakthrough? In a different situation, if he were in their shoes, he would not let go of his former mortal enemy. The one who strikes first gains the advantage, and the one who strikes last suffers. Only when the primeval overgod had just broken through would there be a chance. Once the primeval overgod reacted, there would be no way for him to survive. The limestone sovereign fell silent. However, the tranquil jade overgod's words made him shudder with fear. Since the primeval master god was not a kind person, how could Taoist creation be a good person? If they were not careful, the two Hotian saint deities would be swallowed whole, including their skin and bones. After a while, the limestone sovereign gritted his teeth and pondered. Let's go to the Thousand Demons' Great World. Thousand Demons' Great World? Isn't that the territory of the demon clan gods? The tranquil jade overgod's expression changed. That's right, it is the demon clan's territory. Didn't Yuanshi kill the clone of the Golden Rock sovereign of the Golden Rock clan? We'll go to the Golden Rock clan this time. I believe the demon clan will be happy to get involved. A vicious look flashed in the limestone sovereign's eyes. That's a good idea. If we can get the demon clan gods to join us, it won't be so easy for Taoist creation to scheme against us. It's easier to fish in troubled waters. The tranquil jade overgod nodded. The two of them came to an agreement and immediately flew toward the Thousand Demons' Great World. To be able to become a master god, none of them were simple characters. Spirit Sea, Flying Cloud Mountain, Primal Chaos Xingqian School was bustling with activity. Ever since Qin Feng opened the mountain gates and recruited talents from all over, regardless of their background, the celestial system was filled with countless celestial gods. Out of the trillions of voids in the vast expanse of land, countless innate gods could be seen swarming toward the earth-marsh divine land almost every day. The Earth Marsh Divine Land had already changed. Many primal chaos Xingqian school experts worked together to build many magnificent divine cities. This was especially true for the Flying Cloud Mountain, which was the core of the Flying Cloud Mountain. Magnificent buildings that looked like heavenly palaces stretched from the foot of the mountain to the main hall of the origin star through huge jade steps. No, this place had been renamed the Lingshao Palace and had the reputation of the Lingshao Heavenly Palace. Land of the Gods, Home of the Gods. Many names were added to this divine mountain. On top of the divine mountain there was a huge gate. Faint rays of light shone down from it. Rainbows hung in the sky, and celestial music filled the air. There seemed to be countless gods sitting peacefully, listening to the Tao voices of the sovereign gods. There were even many tall innate deity kings. Some of the innate divine spirits who were listening to the Tao voices at the very front glanced at the Tao voices, and their hearts skipped a beat and their bodies almost exploded. They were deity emperors. There were also a few other emperor-level experts seated on prayer mats, listening to the preaching of the Tao by the Khanate overgod seated on a jade prayer mat above the enormous plaza. This is the Spirit Sea God system. After Qian Kai left the Viper Valley, he passed through many spirit regions and arrived at the Earth Marsh Divine Land. The first thing he saw was the huge phenomenon on top of the Flying Cloud Mountain. In his Yuan Shun, there seemed to be faint Tao voices coming from the gate above his head. Even the slightest bit of it was enough to shake his Yuan Shun. Colorful rays of light rolled and auspicious qi filled the air. Around him, there were also many huge mountains. On top of the mountains, there were many terrifying auras that remained and manifested in divine light. Vaguely, one could see many divine kingdoms. Countless living beings were among them. With just a cursory glance, Qian Kai sensed more than a dozen divine auras that were no weaker than his own among the many mountain ranges. If he sensed them carefully, there would be even more. In the sky, the stars seemed to have fallen, as if the stars had turned into islands. Countless high-level innate gods' auras were spread out. They were majestic and respectful to the tall deity kings' palaces. This place was like the divine court of the gods in the legends. Chapter 1487. The islands of the stars in the sky seemed to have turned into stars that filled the sky. Vaguely, they formed a boundless starlight array in the sky. It looks like the ancient star god array, but it's not. It's even more mysterious than the ancient star god array. Qian Kai glanced at it and felt a stinging pain in his eyes. He quickly lowered his head. He had seen Xingqian School's array before, but compared to the array in the sky, the ancient star god array didn't even have 1/10,000th of its charm. "Where did you come from, Your Eminence?" When Qian Kai arrived at the foot of Soaring Cloud Mountain, he was stopped by a few silver-armored generals transformed from innate gods. Qian Kai glanced at them and was slightly shocked. The innate gods in silver armor weren't weak. Their leader was a middle-level innate god in a silver robe and a white cloak. He didn't notice it before, but when he released his divine will, he saw millions of innate gods in silver patrolling above the sea of clouds. And these were only the innate gods outside Flying Cloud Mountain. Over the years, after the primeval emperor's breakthrough, Flying Cloud Mountain's influence gradually spread into the 3,000 spirit zones and sacred grounds. The number of innate gods in silver was beyond imagination. A god king? He must be here to join the god system. The leading innate gods in silver armor glanced at Qian Kai. When he saw that his divine eyes couldn't see through Qian Kai, he immediately became respectful. "Your Eminence, we're the patrolling innate gods. If you want to join the god system, you can go to the God Ascension platform. That way." The innate gods in silver pointed to a valley in the south that was shrouded in clouds. Vaguely, there were stone steels pointing out the locations of the palaces. That was the direction of the God Ascension platform. Qian Kai wanted to announce his identity as a direct disciple of Xingqian School, but he changed his mind and wanted to see the prosperity of Flying Cloud Mountain. He immediately walked toward the God Ascension platform. Along the way, Qian Kai wore a gray robe and his long hair draped over his shoulders. He looked surprised. Along the way, there were many experts who came to the God Ascension platform, and most of them were high-level innate gods. However, he also noticed that there were some innate gods that were rushing toward a valley in the northwest. They looked like they were in a hurry, which surprised Qian Kai. "Your Eminence, there's no need to look. That's the direction of the general appointing stage. They are only ordinary innate gods, and even if you're lucky, you'll only be a low-level Star Lord." With a shift of his body, a breeze blew and a godly spirit in a green robe appeared not far away from Qian Kai. It was a young deity king with innate celestial wind swirling around him, giving him an ethereal and elegant appearance. Behind him, there were two innate deity kings. One of them was a fire-type deity king with a fiery red robe. One of them was dressed in a blue robe and had a gentle expression on his face. He was also an innate deity king, a water-type innate deity king. Innate god, Qian Kai, innate gods, Qianzes, Qians, Qian, 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 Qian. "Your Eminence is too polite. I'm Feng Xiaoyi, and that's Hualuyun. Shui Wuchang. May I know your Eminence's name? Are you also heading toward the God Ascension platform to join the celestial system?" The handsome God King, innate God King who led the group, chuckled. He fired a series of questions at Qian Kai, making him look like a talkative person. On the side, the two God Kings of fire and water exchanged glances, as if they were helpless. "I am Qian Kai. This is also my first time participating in the celestial system's selection." Qian Kai smiled and nodded politely. Then, his brows twitched. "However, where is the general appointing platform that you mentioned just now? Is there something different about the selection of innate gods?" "You don't know?" Feng Xiaoyi asked back. Qian Kai looked like he really didn't know, and he quickly explained. "That general appointing stage is only a place for ordinary innate gods. It's also the Heavenly Army's place." "Your Eminence, are you thinking of joining the Heavenly Army?" "But Your Eminence is an innate God King. It's a waste for you to join the Heavenly Army." He looked at Qian Kai and shook his head. "Heavenly Army Camp, that must be where that Silver General's manor is located." Qian Kai thought. "Your Eminence, in my opinion, you seem to be cultivating poison arts. Poison arts are the most suitable for you to join the Plague Division. You might even be able to become a deity emperor or even the Plague Division's great heavenly lord." Feng Xiaoyi looked at Qian Kai, feeling sorry for him. "Plague Division?" Qian Kai raised his head and looked at Feng Xiaoyi in confusion. "You don't know?" Feng Xiaoyi looked at Qian Kai in shock. This God King really looked like he came from nowhere. He didn't even know about the celestial system's divisions. On the side, the water god King Shui Wuchang saw Qian Kai's expression and he quickly pulled Feng Xiaoyi down. "Brother Qian, you might not know this, but although the Ling Hai celestial system seems to be very vague, there are already clear divisions in the celestial system," he explained. "The celestial system can be roughly divided into 8 divisions, namely the Thunder Division, the Fire Division, the Plague Division, the Fighting Division, the Water Division, the Sky Division, the Mountain Division, and the Celestial World Division. As the name suggests, the Thunder Division's deity division is based on the transformation of lightning. This division only recruits Thunder Division's deity division and is responsible for clearing out the rebellious deities. It is said that each division has a great heavenly lord in charge of the division, 4 deity emperors, and 8 deity kings. The current Great Heavenly Lord of the Thunder Division is Great Heavenly Lord Primordial Thunder, 9th Heaven. However, only 2 of the 4 deity emperors have reached the perfection realm. There are still 2 positions left among the 8 deity kings. The second division is the Fire Division. The Fire Division's deity division is more powerful and is divided into 3 divisions: the Alchemy Division, the Tool Division, and the Yuanling Division. The Alchemy Division's deity division recruits all the pharmacists and medicine deities in the world. Most of the pharmacists in the 3000 Spirit region joined the Alchemy Division. Next is the Tool Division. Qian Kai raised his head. The Tool Division recruits all the deities who are good at making weapons? Shui Wucheng glanced at Qian Kai. Your Eminence is partially correct, but not completely. It also includes deities who are good at making tools. Qian Kai's eyes flashed. Just these 2 divisions were enough for him to know how vast and magnificent the deity division was. A single leaf knows autumn. The Yuanling sect is easier to explain. They only recruit pure fire deities. Our brother Huoluyun's target is the Yuanling sect of the Fire Division. The Fire Division is even more powerful. In addition to Great Heavenly Lord Huoda, there are 6 deity emperors who are the leaders and vice-leaders of the 3 divisions. There are also 12 fire godly kings. As one of the 3 divisions, the Yuanling sect can also have 4 godly kings. The Fire Division is one of the top divisions of the 8 divisions. Joining the Fire Division will give you great privileges. It is said that you can enter the Great Fire Division of the 3000 Spirit region and adjust the fire veins in the world. Great Heavenly Lord Huoda, the 6 deity emperors, will have priority in breaking through and obtaining the great Tao of heavenly fire after Tao unification. Chapter 1488. As Shui Wucheng finished, he glanced at Huoluyun beside him. Huoluyun was very strong, with flames circling around him. He too was a peak deity king. Clearly, he was eyeing the 6 deity emperors' positions and was trying to get one of them. And then there's the Water Division. The Water Division is dominated by the dragon race, and the ones in charge of this division are the dragon gods. Shui Wucheng said helplessly. The Water Division is in charge of the 5 seas and the water bodies above the spirit realm. They build the water palace and form a part of the heavenly net. The Water Division is even bigger than the Fire Division. Other than the great heavenly venerable Shueda, there are 8 deity emperors and 16 deity kings. However, there are more dragons in this division. Most of them are the dragon gods of the 5 seas. With His Majesty Yuanshi as the ancestral dragon, he is the most direct of the direct descendants. The 8 deity emperors are mostly at the peak, leaving only 2 permanent deity emperors and 4 deity kings for the other gods. There are 8 deity emperors in the Water Division? Qian Kai was shocked. The Water Division's strength was unimaginable. Shui Wucheng's eyes shone brightly as he said proudly. The Water Division's gods each had their own duties. Most of them were the river gods, lake gods, and sea gods of the rivers, lakes, and oceans. They were responsible for the heavenly net. Any position in the Water Division's gods was a lucrative one. Especially the 16 deity kings. They were the core of the Water Division, and Shui Wucheng's goal was to compete for one of them. However, the competition was extremely stressful. The dragon race's dragon kings were all eyeing the position covetously, and there were also many innate water elemental deity kings. And then there are the gods of Plague Department. Most of the gods of Plague Department are powerful gods who are good at medicine, poison, and plague. Apart from the Plague King, there are also 4 god emperors and 8 god kings of Plague Department. Plague Division. Qian Kai's eyes flashed. This sounded quite interesting. Shui Wucheng continued. Then there's the Heaven Realm Stars and the Dou Division. The Heaven Realm Stars are led by the original Hunyuan Xingqian school, accommodating the Star Lords and controlling the heavenly net. Among the stars in the Heaven Realm, the Star Lords and Star Gods will only accept the Star Gods of Hunyuan Xingqian school. In the future, the Star Lords will only accept the Star Gods of Hunyuan Xingqian school. If you want to enter the stars, you must first enter Hunyuan Xingchen School. The Do division is more complicated. The heavenly barracks you saw came from this division. The threshold to becoming a pantheon is lower, and they have the most members. They call themselves heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals. This division has a close relationship with the stars in the heaven realm. Many heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals, as long as they meet the requirements of the merit list set up by Yuanshi His Majesty, can use their merit to exchange and enter Hunyuan Xingchen School to cultivate. Other than that, there are also the mountain gods. They control the ley lines and refine the earth net. They are the most important part of the primeval emperor's heavenly dragnet plan. The mountain gods also have an extremely deep relationship with the billions of netherworld kingdoms in the land. However, ordinary gods can't enter this step. Qian Kai was slightly surprised and looked at Shui Wuchang. Why is that? The mountain gods already have a ruler. He is the second saint god of the spirit sea. Shui Wuchang said respectfully. Feng Xiaoyi and Hualuyun also looked serious. Are you talking about the Emperor of Earth, Wang Daoi? Qian Kai raised an eyebrow. Your Excellency, please be careful with your words. Shui Wuchang frowned. Oh, I'm sorry. Qian Kai reacted. As a level 16 saint god, his power was immeasurable. He was no longer the true disciple of Xingchen School, Wang Daoi. Seeing Qian Kai's expression, Shui Wuchang did not pursue the matter. He only warned with a solemn expression. Your Eminence, in the future, when you are in the Pantheon, you can't call the Emperor of Earth by his name. It's fine if we hear it, but if the mountain gods hear it, you will be in trouble. Qian Kai nodded. Clearly, the mountain gods were formed from the original netherworld gods, as well as the many earth gods. The Emperor of Earth, Wang Daoi, had proven his Tao several years ago. Many people thought that he had failed and died along with the phenomenon. It was only later that people realized it. Although the Emperor of Earth had succeeded in proving his Tao, he was still in the netherworld kingdom and had yet to come out. What about the Tian gods? Qian Kai recalled the 8 division gods, the thunder division gods, the fire division gods, the plague division gods, the fighting division gods, the water division gods, the mountain division gods, the celestial division gods, and the heaven division gods. Shui Wuchang had been talking about the other 7 gods, but he did not seem to have heard Shui Wuchang mention the Tian gods. Shui Wuchang shook his head. The Tian gods are the most mysterious. We have never seen them. As for their duties, we are not particularly clear. However, it is said that they control the Pantheon. They are very terrifying. Apart from the 8 gods, there are many other places where the gods have their own duties. In the chief god space, the gods who were listening to the preaching dispersed. The gods were awakened from the mysterious Tao sound, and they all looked regretful. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to listen to the chief god preaching. However, the primeval Lord God only preached once because he felt like it. After today, they did not know when they would be able to listen to the chief god preaching again. The gods retreated one after another. In the chief god space, only the 2 original god kings guarding the door were left on this huge podium. Qin Feng stood up from the futon and looked outside the chief god space. At this time, the origin C that had been refined was close to 12%. At this time, it had been 4 or 5 years since he defeated the creator primordial spirit. In these 4 or 5 years, the pantheon was gradually established. With the inescapable net as the basis, he established the 8 gods and controlled the gods of all heaven. He had almost grasped the Spirit Sea continent in his hands. In the Spirit Sea, the original 72 mysterious sects, the archaic 10 paths, and many hidden forces were almost completely suppressed. They were gradually disintegrating. However, the progress was very slow. After all, the 72 mysterious sects and the archaic 10 paths were in the Spirit Sea. They had been operating for too long and were deeply rooted. It was difficult to see the effects of the disintegration in a short time. Even though Qin Feng had become an unprecedented 16th level holy god. However, apart from the 72 mysterious sects and the archaic 10 paths, the other small families, sects, and even the 800 unorthodox groups were quietly disintegrated under the inescapable net's silent infiltration. In just a few years, the 8 gods of the pantheon had grown to this stage and swallowed many small sections. The 800 unorthodox groups were a very important factor. Apart from that, there was also the addition of the dragon tribe of the 5 seas. After receiving the oracle of the 3 spirit sea dragon lords, apart from a small number of experts from the dragon tribe who could not resist, most of the experts from the dragon tribe chose to join the primeval lord god, the 4th dragon lord. It was also because of this that Qin Feng was able to expand the pantheon so quickly. Finally, there was that senior brother earthly sovereign. Chapter 1489. Qin Feng looked in the direction of the billions of underworld kingdoms. It was certain that the earthly emperor had successfully integrated and became the 2nd holy god of the Spirit Sea, the 1st holy god. However, there was still some time before he could completely take form. However, there was no problem with telepathic communication. Qin Feng originally thought that after the earthly emperor successfully broke through, he would choose to leave the Spirit Sea and establish a god system on his own. It could be seen that Wang Daoi was a very proud person. He would never submit to others easily. Unexpectedly, senior brother earthly emperor accepted his invitation to join the divine system and become the 2nd holy deity after him. He didn't know why, but he didn't know why. Qin Feng's eyes flashed with a smile. This was good. He had another capable helper. Immediately, Qin Feng's gaze fell on the origin sea and the inescapable net that was faintly appearing. The prototype of the inescapable net had been born, and the origin sea had also sensed the inescapable net's promoting effect on heaven and earth. It was increasing the input of the origin and even merging with the inescapable net. This action caused Qin Feng's share of the origin sea to become heavier and heavier. The refining speed was getting faster and faster. After the creator primordial spirit was severely injured, it could only watch Qin Feng build the inescapable net and was powerless to cause trouble. Qin Feng's gaze carefully circled the origin sea. For some reason, he always vaguely felt a kind of impulse recently. This impulse didn't come from the primordial spirit, but from the inescapable net. As the existence with the highest authority in the inescapable net, he vaguely discovered a very strange aura looming in the inescapable net. Qin Feng always felt that something was strange. The extraterrestrial gods had always regarded the Spirit Sea as a fat piece of meat, and Qin Feng didn't dare to relax for a moment. Although this strange aura flashed by, Qin Feng believed that it wasn't an illusion. There must be something fishy. He began to search through the inescapable dragnet. At this time, outside the Spirit Sea continent, outside the Endless Sea. Since the Spirit Sea leveled up, countless Khanate Chaos Vital Chi and Khanate Primordial Spirit Chi had descended, forming many continents outside the 5 seas. These continents were very large, and part of them was occupied by the 5 seas dragon race. A part of it was occupied by the experts of the water tribe in the deep sea. Some of them were owned by some newly born innate god. These newborn innate godly spirits were born from the innate origin chi, spiritual veins, and spiritual root. They all had their own ways and means. Some of the stronger innate deity kings were born with the power of a deity king. With just a little bit of cultivation, they would be able to ascend to the deity emperor level. There are also great rewards, weapons, spiritual roots, divine pellets, female cauldrons, and top-tier cultivation spiritual mountains. The many factions moved immediately upon hearing the news. In the Zifu prefecture, amidst the rainbow light, a strange light flashed through the boy's eyes. A gray disk of samsara appeared around him. The 12-colored light on the disk of samsara flickered faintly, and a while later, the phenomena that were about to appear completely vanished, as if it had never existed. As the invisible reincarnation disk fell into his hand, it disappeared in an instant. The reincarnation was successful? A cold light flashed in his eyes. He glanced around, especially at the small gray seal in the divine spring. His eyes flashed with a hint of a smile. As expected, heaven and earth just ascended not too long ago. This reincarnation even gave birth to an innate treasure. How lucky! However, although the heavenly cycle reincarnation secret art fooled this world's origin consciousness, it's not without its repercussions. 30 years, at least 30 years to recover my peak strength and reunite with the Tao. The boy waved his arm, feeling the power in his body that was less than 1,000th of his peak strength. He frowned, not quite used to it. His reincarnation secret art was unparalleled, but he still needed time to familiarize himself with this world's completely foreign Tao. What I need to do now is to assimilate into this world. It's best if I have a clear understanding of that primeval overgod. Know yourself and know your enemy, and you'll never be defeated. The torch dragon's expression was cold. This new godly monarch was none other than the other world's dragon ancestor. He used the secret art of reincarnation to descend without a sound. He was an extremely mysterious and terrifying existence. The torch dragon only learned about the formation of a new 33 heavens from Taoist creation. Ever since he received this news, he had been intrigued. Especially when he learned that the Khanate universe Great Tao was born in the Spirit Sea, he became even more greedy. He was no stranger to this reincarnation method and quickly entered the state. He glanced at the island. There was a huge chaos spirit vein under the island and a Khanate array formation protecting it. It was just enough to provide him with a place to cultivate in peace. The start this time was much smoother than expected. The torch dragon's lips curled into a sinister smile. Then, he closed his eyes and focused on comprehending the Khanate universe Great Tao in the Spirit Sea. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.